you to one of our sponsors, Whiskey River Beef.
Yes.
Whiskey mash fed, start to finish. Best freaking steak you'll ever put in your mouth.
Man, I probably go through, what do you say, 40 to 50 pounds of beef a week with everybody I feed. I mean,
Wow.
Probably, yeah.
It was 15 pounds of tomahawks just yesterday.
That's the only reason I stayed past dinner time.
You raise your own cattle, don't you?
Working on it. I'm building. I've got 4 head out here on this 25 acres that I've got.
Okay. Well, I'll introduce you to my buddy Prentice. He owns Whiskey River Beef.
Yeah.
He's down in Murfreesboro.
Well, perfect. I'm looking for like I've got about 2 years before my small herd will start putting out beef calves, basically. So I'm looking for something to bridge that time because it's so hard to find good cuts of meat anymore.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, look no further. I got you covered. So. All right, let's start this baby up.
All right.
Mission First Tactical is the official tactical accessories provider for the Talking Lead podcast and the Leadhead Brigade. Use the code LEADHEAD for an exclusive 20% discount on all orders.
All right, lead heads. Welcome back to another episode of the Talking Lead podcast. I am your host, Lefty, and we have been leducating the uneducated here on the Talking Lead podcast since 2012, bringing you all the coolest products, people, places, events, and probably some stuff that you never even heard of or thought about, because we talk about everything here. We don't just limit it to firearms. Today's episode, you guys are really going to enjoy this. We have the gentleman from Slide Fire, because the bump stocks are back, baby. I think we've got a shirt that proves it.
There you go.
That's it.
Loving it. So joining us today, we've got Tommy and Jeremiah, and for those who probably in the know and are familiar with Slide Fire, Jeremiah Cottle, he is the inventor. He came up with the Slide Fire, the bump stock that we all know and loved and are going to start loving again even more. So, gentlemen, welcome into the show.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Hell yeah, I appreciate you guys joining me. And, I should have just driven up there to East Tennessee, because you guys are only a few hours from me. Could have brought the studio up there, and we could have hung out, done a little range time.
Oh, yeah.
It's starting to get colder here in Tennessee, though.
Yeah, it's getting pretty cold. I got my jacket I took off. It's been.
I like that. I have to ask you where you got that. That's my style right there, baby.
Oh, yeah, it's nice. Keeps you warm.
So we are fellow Tennesseans, and we're going to chat it up here today. We're going to learn more about Slide Fire. We're going to learn more about Jeremiah and Tommy, and we're going to talk a little bit about some past history with the bump stocks and kind of the future and where things are headed. But before we do that, you got to go and you got to support our sponsors, the people who make this show possible. And I got to thank you guys, because we had a fiasco with one of our sponsors, Pioneer Arms, which all of our listeners are familiar with. They sponsor our AK Corner for this year, and they had a falling out or something. I mean, we still don't know exactly what happened with Pioneer, but they just kind of closed their doors, and they left some of our listeners high and dry with prizes, because Tommy, Jeremiah, we reward our listeners on this podcast. We don't ask them to pay or do anything like that. Just for listening and enjoying and having a good time, we give them prizes for participating. And you guys, Tommy reached out to me. I met you at GOA, Tommy.
That's right.
Yep.
In Knoxville, GOA this year, their first convention event that they had. And you came by the booth, introduced yourself. We got along great. And then I guess you listened or you saw an Instagram post or something that I made. about Pioneer, and you're like, hey, we'll be happy to step in and take care of your listeners. And man, you guys are awesome for doing that. I know our listeners appreciate that too. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I appreciate you being able to help. Thank you for
Oh,
part of that.
That's what this community is about. You know, we help each other.
Yeah.
And especially with what you guys have been through. And we're going to get in that. We're going to talk about that. But make sure you go. Our other sponsors, Mission First Tactical. Use the code LEADHEAD. You're going to get 20% off any of their products. They've got magazines. They've got AR accessories. They've got holsters. And they got this thing you saw on the last episode. I was wearing this with Ton. This is their new chest pack. So when you're out in the field, you're out hunting, you're out hiking, they've got this nice little chest pack. It's got its harness that just goes over your shoulders. You can put your binoculars in there. It's got a nice little place for your handgun that goes in there. I know you guys are hunters. You do some hunting, so this would be perfect for you guys up there in East Tennessee.
I'm going to order now, if that's all right. 20% off. Got it.
I know a guy. I could probably hook you guys up. So.
Oh, those can definitely come in handy.
Yeah.
If that's something you're interested in, let me know. I'll fare and we'll get you hooked up with that.
Oh yeah.
So Mission First Tactical, use the code LEADHEAD. You get anything on their website, 20% off. I think even the discounted stuff, it works on their discounted products as well.
Yeah.
So go check them out. So you guys with Slide Fire, I mean, you started back 2010, I think, is when the bump stock really, started to get going. And between then and when that ruling came out where the government imposed its will and said that they were machine guns, you had really gained some momentum, and you had a whole line of different products and accessories that went around the bump stock there. So you just out of nowhere, a grinding halt, because the government decided that they're going to change their mind on what's legal and what's illegal. How did that affect you personally? I mean, I know, business wise, how it affects you. Everybody knows that, but
yeah,
that's got to have a huge mental and physical just downer on you and your family as well.
Yeah, I mean, especially, I'm a retired Air Force, so like my family has served the country. My granddad was in World War II. My dad was in Vietnam. So like we're very patriotic family. And like for those types of things to happen in your country that you serve to defend, it really messes with your head for a while. Like it took a while for me to just, after we shut down, I just sort of stepped back. I unplugged from social media simply because the death threats, and I had to get the FBI involved to protect my kids, and I didn't sleep in my home for 3 months. So I really stepped back, and it's given me these years to do some self-reflection, which I think is one of the best forms of personal growth. And that's why we're back at this point is, it's not right what happened. The Supreme Court finally stepped up and heard the case and ruled in our favor. And sometimes you got to keep going. Like you can't stop.
It's kind of ironic too, because the president that basically appointed the Supreme Court that we have now is the one who imposed his will and said, hey, ATF, classify these as a machine gun.
Yeah.
That's got to be kind of bittersweet.
Well, I mean, it's one of those things where, I've had the question from people that ask about my opinion on Donald Trump, and, people make mistakes. And the court said it was a mistake.
Yeah.
My personal opinion, he didn't start any more new wars. Like, I respect the guy for that, but he got it wrong. He got it wrong. The court said he got it wrong. Afterwards, he said, he would respect the court's opinion. What else can you ask, right? I think I'm owed an apology.
Well, and he didn't do anything up until the Parkland shooting. So, with the Las Vegas shooting and all that, there was, really wasn't on his radar, so to speak. Right. And then that Parkland murder massacre happened, which didn't even involve your product at all. And then he comes in and makes this decision. So I think it was more of a perception, public perception that he did it, which, Trump, that's uncharacteristic of him. So I was shocked when he did it.
Me too. There's a lot of opinions that go on that. I mean, I think he probably got some bad advice from bad advisors. He's come out there and said that, he wasn't a politician. He listened to people and appointed people that he shouldn't listen to advise him. Yeah. And I think that's probably very, very accurate. And, it's one of those things where, unfortunately, I was the scapegoat. My product doesn't shoot bullets and you go after me.
Yeah.
None of it makes any sense to me. And like you were saying, he didn't come down and sign that executive order until February 20th, which, that's months and months after it happened.
Well, another mass shooting happened, in between.
Let's just be clear. Everything in Vegas is alleged. Like, nobody has shown any evidence that was my product. So that's just like they have done.
I mean, we could, and I love conspiracy theories and whatnot, and we could probably spend the whole show just going back and reevaluating, that whole thing. But it just disappeared. You don't hear about it anymore. There's no talk about it. It just went away.
If you
so many unanswered questions, like you said, is like the bump stocks, and everybody who listened and heard it is like, that's not a bump stock. That's a real, M60 or something, whatever he's shooting there, and the fact that he had them on tripods, and you can't really operate a bump stock off a mount system,
Right.
We found one article this year. Somebody post us a link somewhere where the media covered the shooting and memorialized those people. We found one link this year about the promise to build a memorial. I mean, it's forgotten.
Yeah.
Right. Not by us, not by you, but what about the rest of the world? Right. I mean, where is it at?
Yeah. And there was some report like he had 12 slide fire bump stocks, among some other things, and that he actually used them all.
See, I never got anything. The investigation was so poor as far as, the LVPD actually put out about a 55-page report, and it was very good. I mean, it pointed out a lot of the questions to ask. Like,
they're so corrupt and crooked anyway. So.
I mean, you have 11 minutes of gunfire. I believe he opened up at 10:03. No armed response happened to even enter the floor until like 14 minutes later, and he committed suicide like 3 minutes before any cops showed up. Like, if you're hell-bent on killing a whole bunch of people, why do you stop before you're exerted any pressure?
And that's another thing, is he's got all these military style firearms. He's got ARs, he's got AR-10s, AR-15s, but he's got one revolver. He doesn't have a Glock or a SIG or.
You notice that too. It's the gun that's out of place, because all of the other guns were not only were they AR-15s, AR-10s. I believe he had 14 or 15 AR-15s. I believe it was 6 or 7 AR-10s.
I think he had 8 AR-10s. Yeah.
Okay, and then he had one 308 bolt gun and a wheel gun.
But maybe that's what 7, and then he had the 308 bolt. Maybe that's what it was.
And out of all of those guns, if you look at them, they're very high-end guns. They're LWRCs,
Lewis machine tool, yeah.
And then
high-end.
And then a $500 wheel gun. Like, doesn't make
Smith and Wesson revolver 38.
It didn't make any sense. I was like, that's odd.
But it's like he just ran out of money all of a sudden, I guess. After.
Yeah. There's so many questions on that. You're 100% right. You could spend hours. If you spend an hour researching it, you'll spend days asking questions. And that's what needs to happen. Yeah. And
as a educated American, and you hear these stories, and a firearms enthusiast too, when a educated firearms enthusiast hears that whole story, it just nothing makes sense. Yeah. It's like, no, there's something going on here.
And then you throw the two things. ISIS claimed responsibility within minutes after it happened. And then the police captain that was in charge of the response moved to Maui in 2021, and then 2 years later, Maui burns to the ground. Like, what's the statistical odds of being into the two most mass casual events in the U.S. in the last decade, and you just so happen to be the guy in charge?
Just so happened.
It's weird. It's a lot of weird questions.
Oh, and that's another. You don't hear about the Maui fires anymore either. That's just kind of been
At all, like no information.
They got their $750, and what's happened since then? The government's gone in and bought up all their land. So,
yeah,
conspiracy theory. I love them, but you guys overcame that, through our judicial system.
It took 6 years.
It took 6 years, and no telling how much money, and how much money it cost you in those 6 years. And then not to mention the money that you lost because you had to destroy your inventory, didn't you?
Oh yeah, we destroyed thousands and thousands and thousands of it. And then not to mention that, I have 18 patents across it. I built a company on something that I designed, and a patent's only good for 20 years, and they just took 5 years away from me. Like, they took 25% of my patent's life.
That was one of my questions there is the patent. Is there any way to get those 5 years back on the patent?
I don't know if there's any way that you can get the 5 years back on the patent. You would have to petition the patent courts as well, but there's damage.
I think you should add 5 more years onto your.
Hey, the ATF said that it was $100 million industry in the first year alone on their economic evaluation that they did on the rule. Like, I'm fine with those numbers.
Yeah, reimburse me.
Yeah,
reimburse me those 6 years.
And there's actually case law that might allow for that.
Oh, there is. Okay,
possibly.
So you're looking into that.
Yep. That hopefully we'll have some information coming out shortly about that.
Good. Well, keep us up to date because
absolutely,
definitely want to know that. But again, like I said earlier, the bump stock wasn't the only product, and you've got, like you said, you got all these other patents, and you had all these other products out. And I think did you have them for the AK at that point?
Yeah. Actually, so my product. Oh yeah, absolutely. I had one that y'all will love, and I'm working on bringing that one back. So
sweet.
I had 39 products across 11 different platforms. I wasn't just like a one-stock wonder. Like, I had built a massive company with a big product catalog. And one of the products is for the AK. I had 2 of them. And one of them was called the AK Hybrid, which is an aluminum version of the AK. And it allows you to use AR-15 furniture on the buffer tube area, and then use an AR pistol grip as well.
Oh, wow.
And it has a slide fire function built into it. Can you go back?
How cool is that?
Yeah, and then we had another product that was the SSAK-47 XRS, which was a polymer version, which we offered some of those hydro dipped as well. And that mold we've got to rebuild that mold. That's going to take some time. I mean, we worked that mold to the very end and got as many parts out of it as we could, but now,
did you have to destroy your molds for your products as well?
No, that's the wonderful thing about it and that's the funny thing about it.
That's where the money's at. It's getting those.
Yeah. Like, a tool set costs anywhere from $150,000 to $250,000. Like, that's where the big money comes in. And that's where, as an inventor, you got to put your money up front. Like, you got to spend that money with the hopes that people like what you make. Yeah. And that's a big risk. So, but going back to the molds, I shut down in 2018, and I just put everything in cold storage. And I had a really good relationship with the molding company that I used up in the Northeast, and they just put them on the shelf, greased them up real good, and set them to the side. And then last year, or the year before last, in 2022, when I moved up to Tennessee, the Supreme Court had actually denied hearing the case. And that was before the Fifth Circuit ruled. And the molding company had called me, and they're like, hey, we've got, 20,000 pounds of steel here sitting on the shelves for the last 5 years. What do you want us to do with it? And I kind of worked it out with them to where I was like, hey, hold it for one more year. The Supreme Court just denied hearing it. And if they don't hear it next year, like, y'all can have the steel, you can have all the pistons and everything on it. And I'm sorry for taking up your space, and thank you for helping me.
Oh,
and
wow.
3 months later, that's when the Fifth Circuit got involved. And as soon as the Fifth Circuit got involved, it was, let's start spinning this thing up. So for a year, while we waited on the Supreme Court to even say they're going to hear it, we were spinning up our tooling, moving our tools from Pennsylvania down to Texas so that they were within the Fifth Circuit. And we actually did a small manufacturing run just to keep, like, we put letters out to the DOJ, the ATF, the Fifth Circuit going, hey, if we don't hear something from y'all, according to the Fifth Circuit's ruling, we're going back into business. And so we started offering it in the 3 states in the Fifth Circuit. And none of those individuals responded. So we were like, hey, like, we gave y'all the opportunity to tell us no. And then I think putting that pressure on it was why President Biden ended up asking the Supreme Court to hear the case. And, you know, I can't understand why in the world he would have asked, because this is,
thought it was a slam dunk.
Yeah, I'm like, you know, this is a classic case of executive overreach where a president comes in, where you have something that as soon as April of 2017, like April, the ATF was going, yes, bump stocks are fine. And then 6 months later, 7 months later, he just goes, I don't like them anymore, make it happen. And that's not how it works. And, you know,
but that's how they do a lot of things, though. They weaponize the ATF, and they put the squeeze on them, and they're all right. Make a rule that this is this now, and it's not. It's like they did the same thing with pistol braces.
Mm-hmm.
Did the exact same thing with the pistol braces. It's like, for years they're legal, and then now they're not. Then they're legal, and now they're not again, and now they're legal again.
Well, and here's the thing: it's like, until that's what was so important about the bump stock case getting through, is it literally just, the justices, if you listen to the oral arguments, the justices were pissed that just out of nowhere they made all of these Americans felons, and the government's sitting there going, well, we published it in the Federal Registry. And one of the judges, it's, you know, I'm ad-libbing here, but his response was, so yeah, I'm sure after a hard day's work, the, you know, million Americans that come home pull up the Federal Registry to make sure they're not a criminal anymore. And I was like, oh, we're going to win on that one. And that's what it was about, is you can't change the rules of the game.
Yeah. And in the middle of the game.
Right. And that's just because a president doesn't like something, whether President Trump did or not, or whether he was misled, a president doesn't get to just rule by authority. That's not the way our country's set up. And, you know, it took 6 years, but
somebody needs to tell them that.
Well, here's the thing: is now that the Supreme Court did that with our case, and then the Chevron deference got overturned as well.
Right. Which is what got the pistol braces back.
Right. And they're now hearing the suppressor case, which is coming up, which is extremely interesting. I think, hey, mark my words, I think they're going to take suppressors off the NFA list. I think it's going to be
it's more of a slam dunk than the bump stocks or the pistol braces.
Absolutely. And here's the thing: is I think they'll use the case law that they used in the bump stock case to start pushing these other things through. Yeah. Because especially like in the lower receiver modifications ones, the ghost,
the 80%,
the 80%ers, like, their case is very similar to my case, where it was the exact same product in 2017 as it was in 2021 that they submitted. They just changed their mind. They were like, you submitted it as just the lower receiver here. Here it had a jig with it. The jig doesn't make it a gun. And the oral arguments on that was really interesting as well.
Well, what they're trying to push through on that case is, I can't remember the exact legal term, but it's verbiage. It's how things are actually worded when they go through for their descriptions, or, you know, whatever it may be. And I think that's what they're hinging. When I say they, the people who are trying to get rid of the 80%ers. Was that the Garland versus Vanderstock, I think, case? They call it the ghost gun.
Yeah, that's the one I've been listening to the brief on. And the good thing that I heard on that one in particularly, as far as the Supreme Court goes, is, one, the government had to come back and issue an apology letter to the Supreme Court because the individual item in 2017 was the same as the one in 2021, and they tried to mislead the court that it wasn't. And so we had to write an apology there. And then on top of it, with the oral arguments that I had heard, was one of the Supreme Court justices was, and this is very, very important, is because if we start judging things on what they can become, we live in a very, very dangerous society. You could look at a child and go, that guy's going to become a serial killer. Are we going to be a society where we place our laws on what they...
What was that movie Minority Report? Was that the one with Tom Cruise? And they, could look into the future, and that guy could potentially,
Right. And so the Supreme Court came in there and said, you have to judge these things on what they are right now. Yeah. This is a piece of plastic. It does not meet the definition of a receiver. Will it become a receiver in the future? Maybe. And when it does, then the rules apply.
Well, and that's where I was getting into the verbiage is what the people that are selling it are actually calling it.
Right.
And they're calling it gun kits. And they're advertising it as this is, make your, next AR-15 or whatever it may be. And they're selling them in those kits as that is how they're, and that's what I think they're basing how they're going to win this is based on how it's been, I guess, advertised. I don't know, but I mean, I agree with you. A hunk of metal is a hunk of metal. And if I choose to turn that into an AR-15, which is completely legal already, I mean, I can build my own rifle. I can build my own gun. It's completely legal. There's no law against that. I just can't go and sell it
for commerce.
For commerce. Yeah. So it's legal now. So it should 80%ers should be out there and there should be nothing stopping people from buying them and making their own guns. Now, they're saying they're making it out that all these mass shootings and murders that are happening on the streets are being more and more done by ghost guns
and bump stocks.
And yeah. And
I mean, they just make stuff up, man. Like it's
but they are.
And here's the thing:
the facts are they're not. Because criminals are criminals, and they're not going to take the time to go and build an 80% gun.
No, they're not going to take the time to check the law either. Like this is all dumb.
Yeah.
And, I mean, let's get down to the real root of it. Guns don't kill people. Violence is perpetrated by individuals.
Murder's already illegal.
Yeah.
If you're a felon, it's already illegal for you to own a firearm.
Yeah.
The laws are already in place. They just need to enforce the existing laws.
Stop trying to confuse everybody with everything.
Well, that's what they do. It's all about confusion and division. Let's confuse them and divide them and just keep them at odds with one another while we're doing other shit over here. So
let's keep them too busy fighting to actually think.
Acro bags embrace the art of blending in with a low-vis, everyday carry bag featuring a dedicated, discreet firearm storage system. Designed to meet the needs of modern commuters and travelers seeking both functionality and security, the Acro 10-liter sling bag offers an array of organizational options in a comfortable platform. Whether you're a daily commuter, law enforcement professional, or a weekend warrior, this sling bag caters to your lifestyle with utmost precision. The dedicated, discreet concealed firearm compartment is ambidextrous with quick access. An NFT multi-mount platform is included, offering the ability to mount a holstered firearm or other 1.5-inch belt clip accessories, with custom orientation, utilizing a hook and loop system. Cooling, quilted back padding increases comfort for extended use.
Mission First Tactical is the official tactical accessories provider for the Talking Lead podcast and the Leadhead Brigade. Use the code LEADHEAD for an exclusive 20% discount on all orders.
Well, let's do this because I hate talking politics. This isn't a political show. This is a fun show.
And I'm not political. I don't like either side. I just want you to think for yourself and have a plan.
Critical thinking is the lost art of our century. Somewhere in the past 30 years, the teaching of our children how to critically think for yourself has disappeared, and that needs to come back.
Yes, it does. And that comes through discussion.
It does. Right. And we've lost that. We've lost the family ties to the phone, the social media.
To divorce. I mean, like it's it's been a
Broken
last hard 40 years for the family unit in general for America. So
yeah, and that's where we need to focus and bring it back, and that's going to build our country back again. That's going to make us strong again. But what I want to talk about is I want to learn more about yourself, Jeremiah, and I'm sure some of our listeners have probably heard you on some other shows and done some other interviews. But I kind of want to go back further than maybe what you've gone in some of your other interviews.
Okay.
So where were you born and raised?
I was born in a small town in Breckenridge, Texas, or Breckenridge, West Texas. So I was born out there. I actually lived in a really small town, Moran, Texas. It's about 250 people. It's about 2.5 hours west of Dallas on I-20. So I graduated in a class of 3. I was top of the class.
Was that a K through high school?
Yeah. We had about 110, 115 kids in the whole school from kindergarten through 12. So yeah, it was it's a neat place to live. I mean, the closest Walmart was about 45 miles away. So like that's
Moran, Texas. Is this the right one?
Yep, right. There's where I live. Just about 3 miles east of that dot is my little ranch that we grew up on. They're not that
somewhere
far.
over this.
Yeah, about half that distance. Yeah, right in there.
Right in there.
Yep. There should be a big S curve. Yep. Come back to the left a little bit. That S curve with that little water, we call that the big tank. That's where I spent most of my time fishing, right down there.
Down here in this one?
Oh yeah, it never goes dry. Even when it's 120, it still holds water. You might be able to walk across it, look like Jesus, but it doesn't ever dry all the way up.
Now, did you have brothers and sisters?
I had an older brother. He was 2 years older than me. So
okay.
My childhood was interesting. So looking at that map right there, my dad's house is on the corner of that. And when I was right there above that Texas marker sign is where my dad's house was. And I was given to my grandparents when I was a year old. So like my mom didn't want me, my dad didn't want me, my mom's grandmother didn't want me, but my dad's grandparents finally took me, and thankfully they did, and they lived there on that ranch. And so I got to grow up with like parents that were in their 50s. And I got to grow up on the farm, and we grew up very, very, very poor. It's one of those things where you're land rich and money poor. We did have beef cattle, so it was one of those things where I'm like, I never thought I was poor, but I always wondered why I never got new clothes and why fastbacks from Walmart cost $3 and I couldn't get nothing else. And we all slept in the same living room because if you didn't, you froze to death during the winter, and you didn't stay in the house because we didn't have central heating or cooling. So like you'd burn to death. When it's 120 in the house, like it's 100 or 120 outside, it's 130 inside.
Oh, wow.
So it was just, but I mean, that's growing up West Texas. Like everybody in West Texas has that story.
Now, were you, was it a big cattle farm? How big was it?
It was big for West Texas. It was 1,200 acres, but out there on 1,200 acres, you can run about 50 head of cattle. That's it.
Yeah.
The land just doesn't support cattle growth like East Tennessee does. So, but yeah, we worked cattle. We hauled hay. We, grew oats, wheat, shoveling oats and wheat into the barn, like typical West Texas growing up on a farm type thing. Was
your great grandparents or your grandparents?
My grandparents.
Your
my dad's mom and dad.
Okay, gotcha.
And they just raised me as my own. And, I remember sitting out in the backyard playing as a kid and watching my dad drive by in his truck, and he never stopped. But it was just one of those things. My grandparents were always at my football games and basketball games. So,
that's something I was going to ask. So were you involved in sports?
Yeah. It was one of those things where I was always, so first off, you're lucky if 10 kids try out for the team. And we played 6-man football. So you don't have 11 men, you have 6 instead. And everyone's an eligible receiver. So I was always good enough to be like the 6th man picked or the 5th man on the basketball team. Yeah. I was good enough to at least be a warm body on the court or on the field, but like I wasn't the guy making the highlights on Friday night.
I take it baseball wasn't an option then.
No, it's football, basketball, and track. And our track was literally a dirt track with goat heads. Like if you fell down and tripped, you were getting up bloody.
What was the name of the high school?
Moran High School. Moran High School.
What was your mascot?
The Bulldog.
A bulldog. Okay.
Yeah.
Pretty standard. So,
and actually, my kids went there for a few years, and I think we were the 4th generation in that school. Or they were. So,
oh wow. Okay. Still small, I'm sure, right?
Oh yeah, tiny. It's actually getting smaller. Like when Slide Fire employed about 40 people. We were one of the largest commercial employers in Shackford County, especially out there in that part of the county. And like the mayor for Moran worked at Slide Fire. The old retired dairy farmer worked out there. My grandparents worked out there. One of the old timers that helped teach me a lot as I was growing up as a teenager that lived outside of town came and worked there. I think the first 2 or 3 years I was running my business, the average employee age was like 67 on the insurance or something like that, 70. I mean, they were all like 78 plus, but those were the people I grew up with. And it started off as,
like a family business.
Well, it was, I hate to even call it that because that lasted like a week. Like, I mean, my goal was to sell 500 of these in a year. And I sold the first 500 in 4 days.
In days. Yeah.
So I was thinking, my whole plan of this great idea, maybe somebody will like it too, started off as like, maybe I'll be able to like go to the post office 2 or 3 times because I couldn't even drive a car at this point, man. I'm still screwed up from the 2 brain surgeries after I came back from overseas.
Well, we're going to get into that. I want to talk about that too.
Yeah. And so like, my whole goal was just to go to the post office a couple times a week and drop off a couple of packages. And it turned into the most
just unbelievable. Yeah. It's nothing you could have ever imagined. Huh? Yeah. So was that the very first business that you started? Was it Slide Fire? Because you said you had all these other patents that were, kind of in other.
Yeah. I mean, so growing up in a small town like that, in a poor family, like the only way that when people ask, well, when did your entrepreneurial spirit start? It started when I was in 6th grade. And at that point, I knew I was going to be on the basketball team playing basketball and fastbacks. Are you familiar with fastbacks?
Fastbacks?
Yeah, they're Walmart shoes, like back in the 80s.
Oh, I think they're called the ones now or something like that.
They were literally $3. And they had this weird suede type blue cover on them, and if it rained, they got real hard. And they had about this much rubber on the bottom, and then it was just foam. And so when you wore through the rubber and it rained, they were like ice skates. But
nice.
Anyway,
I had British Knights. That's what it was like. Get them at the Dollar General store. Yeah. British Knights. That's what.
Well, we didn't have no Dollar General store about anywhere close to where I live. That's a 2-hour round trip just to go to Dollar General.
Sound like special shoes.
Yeah. But like, so for me, my entrepreneurial spirit started whenever I worked on the farm. I'd cut, mowed yards and stuff like that on the farm. Yeah. And I was like, hey, Granny.
Hauling hay, stuff like that.
Yeah, well, just for Granny and Pop, and they'd give me a little money here and there. And, I told my brother, I think I'm 13 at the time, whatever age 6th grade is. And I told her, I was like, hey, I can't wear these fastbacks on the court. They leave marks. I want these Jordans. It was first year Jordans came out. And she's like, well, how much are they? I was like, $100. She handed me $3. She said, go find the other 97. And I started mowing yards. And I mowed yards all through high school. I made really good money. I bought my first car that way. I paid for my own clothes. I got to do what I wanted to do. My curfew was 9 o'clock on school nights. As long as I had A's, I got to just take care of business. And then I graduated in.
Did you get the Jordans?
Oh, absolutely. I got the Jordans.
So you got like one of the very first pair of Jordans.
Absolutely.
You know how much those are worth now?
Remember those Sean Kemp shoes that you could pump up to, those Reeboks? I got those too.
Like I never had a pair of Jordans or those. I had British Knights box.
Hey, did you get out there and mow yards though?
Oh yeah, I hauled hay. I did tobacco farm. I just had this instilled in me that you don't need the brand name stuff. The this other stuff's just good enough,
Well, I mean, I was looking for performance. I mean, here's the thing is when I look at stuff, I don't mind paying the extra money to get the machine that will do the job. Like,
well, I will say this, our high school, I went to Sparta, Tennessee, another small rinkety town, but they supplied your equipment for you. So, the cleats and the stuff like that, for the gas case, they supplied that. So I didn't.
Tennessee's got some really, really good public schools. I've been really impressed because my daughter's, when we got here, she was in 8th grade. She's a sophomore now. The Tennessee public schools are really good.
Yeah, I mean, they could be better, but yeah, definitely.
Go to West Texas, you'll love them.
You appreciate what you have here. And that's the thing, is you don't really appreciate something until you see how other people live and how they were brought up. And now, what year were you in high school?
I graduated in 1995. I did 1 year in a local community college because I was valedictorian. So that was back before they'd give anybody a student loan, like the banks controlled the student loans. So I couldn't qualify for a student loan, but I could go to college for 1 year on that state grant. And I did that before I joined the military. So,
yeah.
And then that was
the GI Bill. Is that how you went in with the military?
Well, all of that changed. The military changed a lot in the late 90s and in the early 2000s. It changed a whole lot after 9/11 as far as all the benefit programs. There was a program that when I went in, you had to pay money into, and they'd give you the Montgomery GI Bill. But all of that changed after the towers fell. So it got significantly better, actually. They actually went in there and beefed up a bunch of the programs for the military to where they can go to college, and their kids actually have programs to where your kids can go to trade schools and colleges as well. So, I mean, that was long, long overdue, but the programs that are there now are exceptional. Back when I joined, it was still very lacking.
Yeah. But I graduated in 89, so I'm a little bit older than you.
Yeah.
And I wanted to go into the Navy, and I wanted to be a naval aviator because of Top Gun.
That was a good one.
That was the best recruiting for the Navy that they've ever had in their history. It was that movie.
See, that's what kills me on all of this is like people are like, why did you invent the bump stock? And I'm like, man, I grew up in a time where, first off, I grew up with my grandparents. We watched The Rifleman and John Wayne every day, all day. And the only thing to do in West Texas is when you get home, go hunting or fishing. So as a kid, like everybody wants to be John Wayne or The Rifleman. And then the 80s hit. Now we want to be Rambo and the Terminator.
And Miami Vice. And
So I'm like, like everybody likes doing this. And that was one of the things when I branded my product right out the get-go is like, prepare to change the way you play. This is supposed to be for fun. Go out on the range and have a good time. I forgot. I haven't. When did it become illegal to have fun?
I mean, they're trying to make it that way every day.
I mean, I literally had someone ask me a question.
December the 18th. 2018 is when it became illegal to have fun. But in high school, elementary, high school, you had this entrepreneurial spirit built into you, instilled into you by your grandparents.
Oh, absolutely. So I grew up out on a farm.
You got to work for it, kind of deal. Now, did you have like ideas of inventions and things as you were like mowing yards? What would make this easier, or
Okay, so here's the cool thing about growing up on the farm poor is you can't buy anything. So like if you want something, you have to build it. And if it doesn't exist, you have to build it. So, I mean, I built stuff all the time as a kid. I'd build sleds to pull behind the four-wheeler, and we'd play games of like who can ride the longest. And you would end up with great injuries. And I mean, I was always building things. I was taking you didn't get new toys because you were poor. So you could go places and get broken remote control cars, maybe 2 or 3 of them, and put them back together and get one good one. So, I mean, that's kind of how I always did things was like, what can I take and make it work and make it better?
So a tinkerer.
Yeah. I mean, an inventor.
Around, you figured shit out.
Yeah. And then my granddad always, he always encouraged it, and he had every tool known to man. So like I'd be out there with hammers, nails, grinders, cutting torches, welders at 10, 12 years old getting after it.
Yeah. Now, did you hunt while you were with your grandparents? Was he a hunter?
My granddad actually was a worker. Like we were poor, man. Like he worked till 5 o'clock carrying the mail. He left at 5 in the morning. He got home at 5 at night. Then he got on the tractor till it was dark, or until the headlights went out. And he was home at 8 o'clock, and we watched Hee Haw and Wheel of Fortune together. And he went to sleep, did it again. Yeah, I mean that was
Buck Owens, baby.
And so he never fished. He never hunted. And
okay.
He was one of the hardest working men one of the best men I've ever met in my life. Like he made sure his family was taken care of, even in the hardest of times. I remember going to the bank with him, every month, driving over there with my grandmother as a kid to go to the bank to make the bank payment, even when I didn't know what bank payments were.
Yeah. And why don't we go here every month? What's up with this?
And my granddad worked very, very hard. Very, very hard. And that's one of the reasons why I'm back is my grandparents, the story
never die.
Right. The story needs an ending, and it needs a good one.
Yeah.
So
you out of high school, you went to college for a year. Where did you go to college?
I went to Cisco Junior College, so if you look at that map, it's about 15 miles south of there. I lived in a trashy little trailer house that was on the property that had just been abandoned for years on our ranch. And I would drive down there every day. It's Cisco College now. They took the junior college out a few years back. And it should be down Highway 6 a little bit further. Make that S curve there. Keep going south. And there's Cisco Lake right there. Keep going south about 2 miles. Right there's the college.
There it is, Cisco College.
Yep. I went there for a year. I made the dean's list. But, it was one of those things.
A specialty college? It was community college or something?
It was a community college for poor people. Like you could go to college. Well, you could go to college there for $800 a semester.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And take a full load, a full class load.
I know what you mean.
We went from six to 12 people.
Yeah.
Six in the class of 12.
Yeah. Yeah. It was basically a college for poor people. And there's a lot
and they got a Dollar General in Cisco.
They do now, like they didn't back then. That was brand. Well, here's the thing. It's like the people that invented fracking live there.
Oh, wow. Okay.
The Wilkes brothers do. Like if you go 10 miles south of there, they've got like a gigantic water park on their ranch and everything. So Cisco is a really nice town now because they've dumped millions of dollars back into the community. It's before Rising Star. They've got places out there.
Gotcha.
But that's where the Wilkes brothers live, and that's where fracking was created as well.
They're the ones who created fracking.
Yeah, that's an amazing entrepreneurial story.
I bet I know who he's not voting for this coming election.
Yeah, right. But that's the industry out there in West Texas. It's oil field. And that's what's really stark and drastic as far as from living in East Tennessee is there's so much opportunity here in East Tennessee. In West Texas, the only way you escape West Texas is the oil field, which you're not escaping, and the military. So after a year in college, I was like, if I don't leave now, I'll never leave. I knew that. That was one of the things back in the 80s and 90s. You probably were like, hey, if you don't get out, you'll never get out type thing.
Yeah. And
so after school, I believe it was in January, I just went up to the recruiter's office and was like, hey, I want to fly. And he's like, we ain't got no flying positions. I'm like, call me when you do.
And what got you? Why did you want to fly? Why did you have the interest in
Well, one, I knew. Well, here's the interesting thing. I was like, in the third grade, being that poor, Dice Air Force Base is 45 minutes from Moran. Okay. And so the school would do field trips out there. Nice. And I remember being in third or fourth grade, my teacher was Mr. Trotter. He had worked it out where he could take us all out there. And now I've been in the military. It was a flatline tour, and they have 2 C-130 units out there. And I remember what is that, 8 years old or something like that? Walking on the plane going, man, this is amazing. This is huge. not knowing that 10 years later, I'd be a loadmaster on C-130s. And I wanted the mobility that being flying would take me around the world.
Yeah.
And I wanted that adventure. And so he said they didn't have a position. I got enrolled in the delayed entry program. And I think I got the call in March. They were like, hey, we got a position to be a loadmaster. I was like, I'll take it. They were like, cool, we already signed you up. Glad you said you would. And 2 months later, I finished up. They told me to stay in school and finish up that last semester. And because it would give me one more stripe, which came out to like $60 a month. I mean, I'd be pulling in $340 a month instead of 280, or I mean, every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And so I jumped on board. I did my initial basic training down in Lackland, and then went up to Shepherd, North Texas, did my aircrew school up there for a few months. Then went out to Little Rock, Arkansas, and did about 9 months of loadmaster training on C-130s there, doing low-level training with CDS bundles and heavies and stuff like that, and jumpers as well.
Right.
And then I went to Spokane, Washington, and did some SEER training. And during all of that, I was supposed to be stationed at the 52nd Airlift Squadron in Moody Air Force Base in Georgia, the Fighting Kangaroos. And during that training loop, that squadron got disbanded. So one of the craziest things happened. The military called me and offered me a choice. They were like, where do you want to go? The only 2 locations off limits are Japan and Alaska. And my brother was located in Alaska, and I was like, I don't want to go see my brother. Like, I just grew up with him. And
it's Alaska.
So I was like, is Germany open? And they were like, yep. And I was like, cool. So I was in Ramstein. A few months later, I think I rolled in there about mid-February in 97. And at Ramstein Air Force Base and 37th Airlift Squadron. And then I got right into Kosovo and Bosnia. And then, Kosovo was in 99 into 2000. And then that's whenever I had my second son was on the way. And we were getting worked hard. It was like 20 hours on, 12 hours off, just never ending. Because what most people don't understand is there's only one airlift squadron in Europe. And that's the 37th Airlift Squadron. So all the big heavies bring stuff in from the States and drop it off at Rhine Mine or somewhere. And then the 130 unit there in Europe disperses all of that.
Right.
So especially when you go to a wartime ops tempo, like it's just brutal. So I cross-trained into computer information systems, and in a roundabout way got stationed down at Lackland Air Force Base at the Air Intelligence Agency, attached to NSA. So, and then that's where I finished out my last 4 years. And then during my last deployment in support of the global war on terror, I ended up suffering an injury that, I mean, it's one of those things where right place, right time, didn't think it hurt me bad. Ended up having lower swelling in my lower hemisphere, the left side of my brain. It started putting pressure on my spinal cord, got back to the States, went through several months of observation. They finally decided to do surgery. And it was a spinal decompression surgery, basically, through the back.
Did you have a fall or something?
A what?
Did you have a fall? Did you fall or?
I had a small hit the day before, but it wasn't.
Didn't think it was anything.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. They did a spinal tap on me and they said there wasn't no spinal meningitis or anything like that. It was showed up in the spinal tap.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows why some things happen. And that's just one of those things people's asked me and I'm like, I don't know. Like, I can tell you what I think. I can tell you what the doctors think. They're like, at first they thought it might've been spinal meningitis, but I did a spinal tap and there was no elevated white blood or white count or whatever it is they look for whenever white blood cell count. So, but either way, like it resulted in a surgery that I went in and I came out a whole lot worse than I went in. Like I went in and they were like, this is going to be a very simple procedure. You'll be in ICU for 12 hours. You'll spend 3 days in recovery and then you'll go home. Well, I didn't wake up for 3 days. So that was a hard one.
Do you have any recollection of being under those 3 days, being out those 3 days? Did you have do you remember like any dreams or anything like that?
Yes, and it changed my perspective. Yes.
Right. And that's the reason I'm asking, because a lot of people who have had traumatic brain injuries or head trauma or, something like that, they come out a different person.
Yeah, it's, I didn't talk about it for years, and I'll get choked up talking about it. So just bear with me.
Sure.
So when you get your head cut open, it hurts.
Can't imagine. Yeah.
And so the last thing I remember I was going under is the lady shaking me and going, "You got to breathe, Mr. Cottle. You got to breathe." And I was just in tremendous pain. It's just hard to even describe that type of pain. And so the next thing that I remember, and so you lose all perception of time.
Yeah.
And that's the first thing that I want to emphasize is when people think of this is, when I came out of this and saw the people in the room, I still thought it was 12 hours.
It had been 3 days. Wow.
And during that time, it was like I'll just tell you what it is. People call me crazy. It was like I was in a black abyss, but I was present mentally, and you could feel the pain. And when it got so bad that you wanted to quit, something else was there for 3 days.
Something keeping you hanging on. Now, was your family there with you during this time?
I mean, my grandparents came down, yes. That was a really bad time for me.
Yeah.
What
year was this?
No, 2005. Like I couldn't even make coffee for 3 months, man. Like I was jacked up.
Oh, yeah.
It was, and then I had to go back in and have the surgery redone about 25 days after the first procedure failed. So like it really messed me up. And talk about being terrified. Have that experience on your first one and then get told you're going
back. You got to go back for another dose of it? Yeah. It's like, no thanks.
Scare you to death. So, yeah, you don't.
The reason I was asking if your family was there, because they say that, when people are in comas or, they're out like that, if family members there and they're talking to them, and that helps them to want to hang on and pull through. And,
for me, the only thing else was there was whoever that was behind me. I just call it the presence of the great creator. Like, whatever you call that, whether it be God, Allah, the All-Father, whatever. Like,
or your subconscious, whatever it is that was pushing you through that. Yeah.
Something else is there. I believe there's a spiritual side of this world that we have forgotten.
Yeah. Oh, no doubt. No doubt about that.
That's my own personal belief. Call me crazy, but it served me well.
It's like seasoning a cast iron skillet. Use it that few times and it builds up in there. Our product, CLP Plus, is a bio-based, non-toxic, complete gun care. Your cleaning time will be reduced by over 50%. I like to say it's a clean shoot for it to fully remove whatever product you've had on there before. It's like seasoning a cast iron skillet. So all I like to do is you'll field strip it like this, go piece by piece. Basically all I do, I'll take the nylon brush into the paste and you start covering. Come back, clean each piece, and then even on the handles, on the outside and on the inside. With our product, you wipe it all off. You don't leave any on there. From grains and all, stick it in. It's safe on all metals, plastics, composites, wood, rubber, leather. I just use a nylon brush and then a bore jag with one of our pre-saturated patches. You put it in, swipe, coming back, you can see what it's pulled out. And this was a brand new firearm. With our product, your malfunctions from carbon buildup are virtually eliminated because carbon will not be building up. There's nothing to stick to. And all of our product is USA source and made. Grab the microfiber cloth and back and you'll wipe it off. And you'll wipe all the product off now. There you go. It's that simple.
Seal One is a proud sponsor of the Talking Lead podcast and the Leadhead Brigade. Use the code LEADHEAD for a 25% off discount.
So you had 2 brain surgeries.
Yeah.
To get you right. Now, after you got out and you were doing your rehab, did you have any amnesia or anything like that? Or
oh yeah, I mean, God. Well, like I couldn't even make coffee for a while, so like it greatly impacted my short-term memory.
It's like you didn't remember how to make coffee, or like your motor skills, you couldn't do it.
I didn't remember how to make coffee. So what it really impacted is the step-by-step processes of like, okay, when you make coffee, there's a lot of things you do you don't think about. You take the pot out, you put the water in it, put it, dump it in there, you put the pot back in, you put the grounds in, put it back in, you hit the button, and you come back.
Order of operation. Yeah.
Right. And if you don't do one of those steps, you don't get coffee, or you get coffee everywhere. Like there'd be times that I'd be like, I made coffee, and I'd go in there and I put the grounds in there, the pot's where it should be, but I didn't put water in. Or I'd come back there and I'd be like, yeah, I got coffee. It's all over the countertop because I did everything right, but didn't put the pot back in there. So it just took a while to get those orders and processes. Like right. I did drive a car for 6 years because like things weren't hitting right. And I didn't, it was better for everybody involved. Yeah. So, but
safe and sorry.
But yeah, I mean, it was one of those things that I just worked through, and as far as
about 6 years to get feeling normal, right? I mean, even if you ever did accomplish, 100%.
I don't know if I tell people most I got about 80% back.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm blessed and fortunate. Don't get me wrong, but there's still things that to this day that I'm just better off not doing.
Yeah.
But I know those things now, so I just make sure that either one, I have somebody else covered.
Man's got to know his limitations, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I do it.
Yeah, like
that's what Tommy's there. His personal.
No, so like it's I struggled through that, and because I mean, when you go from, I enjoyed the military. The going from the life that I had on the farm to the military life was very, very different, especially because like on the farm, like I had created my mowing business so I can make more money when I wanted to. And there was times during the year that I couldn't make more money, but I could go haul hay and I could do
something else, supplement. Yeah.
Sort of control my own quality of life. Well, the military changes that whenever your paycheck's $345 every 2 weeks. Yeah. And it don't matter how good of a job you did. But it teaches you discipline. It teaches you struggle. It teaches you suffering. It teaches you what you're capable of. And especially on the operations side, whenever I was working on 130s, because you're literally working with the tip of the spear. Like I wasn't the bad boy that went out into the places and kicked in doors. But guess what? I was the guy that took them there. And those guys did amazing things, and I would hate to have to sleep at night.
I had some friends that were C-130s pilots. John Ward, you remember John Ward?
Never met.
He would have been older. He'd have been about my age, maybe a little bit. Glenn King. Tennessee. They did the Tennessee air wing here.
During Kosovo, I was hard crewed with Mike Minahan, and I believe he's a 3-star general now. I mean, I flew probably 40, 50 combat missions with him into Kosovo. One of the coolest pilots I ever met. He's an awesome, awesome dude. And he was the one calling for, I believe he was over Pacific Command a few years back. He was the one saying that like by 2025, China's going to make a move on us. And if he says that, I believe him. He's a good dude.
Well, flying those big planes like that, I mean, you guys are like you're over everything.
Yeah.
You're the support. You're providing the support.
Oh, yeah.
There's occasions where you guys are getting a little bit lower. And I know that my friends would tell me stories of how they would land, and the crew would come out. And it's like, hey, you guys were shot at. There's bullet holes, and they didn't even know it while they were flying.
Well, we got shot at quite a bit during Bosnia, really, and a lot of it was just small arms fire, and they would shoot at us on takeoffs and landings because that's when we're the slowest and the most vulnerable.
Yeah,
and a lot of Yeah, a lot of times you wouldn't even notice it. You would just come back and you'd do a walk around. There'd be a bullet hole in the lane, and it's not a big deal. But that was just normal. But we had
like that. It's not a big deal. Yeah.
we had crews that just got sprayed one time, and a bullet actually hit the pilot's windshield. And actually hit the loadmaster. So the loadmasters stand in the doors where the windows are on the side where the jumpers go out and look for surface to air missiles, and we can shoot off flare and chaff. So we're watching out for ground threats, and they actually shot a bullet. It was probably 18 inches from Gizmo. It was we all had call names. It was the Sesame Street guy, the blue one with the big nose. Like
Grover.
What's it called? No, that's Elmo. Is even Elmo on Sesame?
Cookie Monster. There's Cookie Monster. There's Grover.
He had the big nose.
They all had big noses.
But anyway,
they were Muppets. They all had big noses.
He ended up catching a bullet about 18 inches left of his head, and it cut the comm cord in half. So he goes to let the pilot know that they're under fire, and he runs from the back of the airplane up to the front. He looks in the cockpit, and the whole windshield's shattered where the window actually stopped the bullet. And he was like, well, I guess I don't have to tell him anything. Runs back, and they get out of there. And they actually took the window out of the plane and framed it and gave it to the pilot and everything as an award. So, but it wasn't the whole Hillary Clinton thing where she's like, we were wearing flak vest and we were getting shot at every day and we were under fire. Yes, we wore flak vests. Yes, we were out there doing engine and running offloads. Sometimes the planes would get hit, but I never saw one skip off the ground next to me.
Yeah.
So, but it's funny.
Did you ever have any in-flight oh shit moments?
Yeah, I've had several of those. And it's funny because like when you're 18, 19, 20 and you're stupid, like you don't think about like that was a close one. But yeah, there's quite a few of them, like when you lose a couple engines going over the Alps and stuff like that, or when you've only got about 45 minutes of fuel coming back from Greece because you're rushing it so that you don't get to the end of the crew day and the gear won't come down, and you know it's about an hour and a half job to chain those things down by yourself. Like you're like, yeah. You start getting the chains out, and then magically they just fall down in place, and you're like, yeah, something good's happening to me. I never told you that one, did I? No, there's a whole bunch of those little ones where you're just like, oh, it could have been a whole lot worse. And then you've had bad ones where like you pulled on a static line and it was cut in half, and you know that somebody was on the other end of it. Yeah. So I didn't personally have that one. I had a good friend that was in a couple planes behind me. Like there's a lot of things that bring the reality of your mortality to home very quickly at times.
How much jump training did you have?
They sent us up. Where was that? We didn't do any live jumping. We just went to the school. They sent the basic, the Army to, where you practice your PLF falls and stuff on a system that you just run down a cable system. It's basically a zip line. You start off like 10 feet above the ground, and you get going 20 miles an hour, let go, and learn to fall without killing yourself.
You didn't actually do any live jumps?
No. I mean, I had plenty of times I had chutes on, strapped into the ramp going, I wonder if I'd get in trouble if I just jumped out and pulled this chute and rolled it down.
You would have.
So I never tested it, but no, I got paid more to actually shut the door.
Never jumped out of a perfectly good airplane?
No, I've done that actually. I did that on my civilian dime. I actually paid somebody to take me out. Actually, at the end of Slide Fire, after I got everything shut down and I'm like, okay, I can breathe. I went to Vegas, and that was one of the first things I did. And I was like, as I see the horizon go from looking at it to there, I'm like, how stupid am I to finally get to this point? And the first thing I do is go jump out of a good airplane. I'm like, oh, I've got about 9 seconds if the chute don't open.
It was a good one.
Yeah. So
yeah, that's nothing that I've ever wanted to do is skydive.
I just did it that one.
Indoor skydiving, you know, Vegas has those indoor ones. I think they even have one in Gatlinburg up there.
They do.
Yeah.
I
did it that one time, and I'm like, check. I don't need to do it again.
Yeah. The scariest thing about that is like, all right, if the thing that big fan's underneath, you know, if that lid comes off and I fall down in the fan and chops, that's the biggest fear.
But no, I flew for those 4 years, and I went down to San Antonio, and then after getting hurt in the surgeries, That was a weird time for the military because that was very, very, very early in the global war on terror. And it's like a big wave of vets coming back. Our body armor and our armored up gear saved a lot of lives that it normally wouldn't. And we had the VA system was just overwhelmed. And not nearly like it was, but you're 100% correct. So I was put on Social Security, and like they said, we'll get to you when we get to you. I actually had the VA when I called them and asked them at like 8 months waiting, and they were like, you're not missing an eye, and you're not missing an arm or a leg, so you're really not that important. And that was verbatim what they said. And they're like, you'll get back pay. And I'm like, but the bank doesn't take IOUs. And so I had to sell my house. I had to sell one of my cars. And when I say one of my cars, it was like a 1988 Toyota Corolla stick with manual windows and no radio type thing. So and
I got $300 for it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I moved back in with my 78-year-old grandparents at that time. I moved back to the family farm and just took residence in my childhood room with, at the time, my wife and 2 children. And
how old were you at this point in your life?
27, 28 time period, and couldn't drive. And you go from operating at such a high level in the military to not being able to make coffee. It's an extremely challenging thing to get through, especially when you're being fed, 240 Percocet and 120 methadone every month with a slew of SSRIs.
Because that's what they're prescribing you. That's what they're giving. They're like, hey,
every month I'd have a bag of so much dope from the VA. Like, it was unbelievable. Like, it would absolutely kill an elephant. 240 Percocet. Because here's what they did is they said, on your bad days, how many do you take? And I was like, on my bad days, like 8. And they're like, cool, here's 240. You can have 30 bad days.
Oh my God. And they're just trusting you.
And if you don't take all 240 of them, then we're not going to give you 200. We're going to start taking them away from you. And so they really feed the addiction.
Yeah.
It's just absolutely sickening and horrible about just I went to the VA the other day because it was about a year ago. I hurt my back. And I was like, I want to see a chiropractor. Like, I just need to be stretched out. And they're like, no, but you can see the nurse. And I'm like, what?
Give you a pill.
So you can give me some more pills?
Yeah.
Like, thank you. Like, no, I won't do that.
Oh, man.
I lost 9 years of my life.
Healthcare system, man. And oh my gosh, we could talk for days on that. I mean, it's a business. They don't make money unless they keep you addicted to something.
It's horrible. And here's the thing is, no wonder 22 of us kill ourselves every day. Because when you're in that bottle that deep, you don't see any other way out. And it's horrible. The VA has no program of how to get you off of them. I was fortunate and blessed to have started a company that allowed me and gave me the discipline and the desire to push myself, because I didn't get off till 2013. Like, I started this company strung out on pills from the government. And I managed to get through it. And in April of 2013, I checked myself into a hospital in Houston and said, I can't do this no more.
And got yourself clean.
Hadn't taken a pill since. And then it's funny when the doctor's like, I'm doing a little bit of PRP on my shoulder because I'm getting old. And the doctor's like, here's just some hydrocodone. And I'm like, no, thank you. He's like, well, what are you going to do for pain? And I'm like, I'll drink whiskey. And he's like, well, I can't recommend that. And I'm like, but you can recommend this?
Yeah.
I'll drink whiskey.
Because they make money off that. They make money by prescribing those pills. It's a scam. It's a racket.
It's like that.
Insurance and healthcare, 2 of the biggest rackets in our country. Legalized criminality is.
You're not wrong.
And they're in it together.
But
and the government's in with them.
That was a hard thing. And starting my business absolutely 100% saved my life. Not only did it give me purpose, and with the meteoric rise that it did, like I said, I hoped to sell 500 in a year, and we sold 500 in 4 days. It forced me to stop making excuses for myself.
Yeah.
But you have to do this. You don't get a choice. You can't quit. And that's when my grandparents really stepped up, and they saw how much I was struggling with, like, how do I take this to, like, what do I do? And well, I mean, and you got to.
I want to back up a little bit before we get in, because I want to pick up there when we get done with this. When was your first exposure to a firearm? When was the first time you ever shot a gun?
First exposure was probably when my grandmother shot a skunk off the back porch when I was like 3. Or a rattlesnake. Like,
would she have a shotgun, or would she have?
Oh, she's got a little 410 shotgun. My daughter actually has it now. When she
Nice.
passed away, she left it to me, and I actually gave it to my daughter this last summer. I was like, this was to your great grandmother's shotgun.
Awesome.
So, like,
Family heirloom.
Yeah, it didn't happen. I mean, it happened a couple times a month. A skunk would be in the backyard, or a rattlesnake would be on the, in the yard or something like that. Something.
When's the first time you got to shoot one? How old were you?
Probably 7 or 8. I had a little single shot 22 bolt action. Like, every time you fired it, you had to pull it out, and like, gun was so old and I was so poor, like the extractor didn't work, so I had to get my pocket knife out and pull the 22 shell out. So you had to be a good shot. You weren't going to get a second shot.
Yeah.
So, like, I've been around firearms pretty much my whole life, just because the environment that I lived in.
Sure.
And, I mean, it was one of those things where you had coyotes that would run the cattle. You would look out there in the morning drinking your coffee, and there'd be 8 or 10 coyotes running 20 or 30 head of cattle. Like, you got to do something about that. You can't just sit by and let them kill your calves.
Yeah.
So, like, it was a necessary skill to have on a daily basis on the range.
So was the military your first exposure to semi-auto?
No, I did have some high-powered semi-auto, yes. So most of my growing up, I had very little experience with pistols. I had my stepdad had a Mark II, and I actually have a Mark II Ruger 22 that I shot a lot of beer bottles growing up in the middle of nowhere, Texas. He drank a lot of beer, and that's what you shot. Yeah. And then I had an old, what was it, nylons? Is it nylon 66 or nylon 77? What's that Remington nylon, old 22? You feed through the back end.
Okay.
But I did not have anything that was like a 223 or a 9mm, anything bigger than that, because one, I was too poor to afford ammunition to shoot it. 22, I could buy a box of bullets, 550 bullets for $9 at Walmart. I could shoot for a month. So it wasn't until the military that I actually shot the Beretta 92, and then I actually shot the AR-15 there, and I actually shot marksman.
Nice.
With the rifle, and I was just a little bit off on the pistol, but I think I was too short of doing marksman on the pistol. But it obviously, my experience with firearms as I was younger definitely helped. It's just, it's the same practice. My granddad did take the time to teach me those things whenever I was young enough to actually find interest in it. He did teach me the very basics, like, don't point at anything that you're not ready to destroy, and look past what you're shooting to make sure you don't hit anything important. So those things were taught at a young age. Yeah.
So in the military, just whenever you had to qualify or do whatever, that was pretty much the exposure that you had there?
Yeah, the only exposure I had to the AR-15 is in basic training. As air crew, we carried the Beretta, the 92, and that's what we qualified with every year after that, or every couple of years. But I've never cared too much for carrying pistols whenever I was younger, simply because it's a whole lot easier to accidentally shoot yourself in the foot with a pistol than a rifle. So, like, that's when I'm
statistically proven. Yeah.
When I'm going through the fields and jumping barbed wire fences and stuff like that, the last thing I want to do is accidentally shoot myself. So when you're poor, you don't typically have the right holster and all this other good stuff for proper technique. So I just always carried a sling with a rifle.
So when you get back, you find military's not taking care of you, got to move in with your grandparents.
Yep. And so after a couple of years of dealing with that, the Abilene Reporter News ran a story, and magically, I believe it was within 72 hours, the VA approved my benefits.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I was like, and the Abilene Reporter News did the article, so you can Google
media actually helped you.
I mean, I was like, wow. And that's Yeah, that was very, very interesting. So that got me my benefits. We used the little bit of back pay that I did get to start building a metal barn, a 40 by 60 metal barn. And then over the course of the next 3 years, I just started finishing out the metal barn into a house. And, you know, I had cardboard. When I couldn't hang the sheetrock or find anybody to help me, we just stapled cardboard on the wall. So I remember the fireplace when we moved in was literally all cardboard and just a gas fireplace. So the kids would get up there and color on the cardboard and stuff like that. We actually didn't get the house completely finished until after Slide Fire. So, I mean, it took 5 years to finish it. I mean, yeah, whenever, like, even the window sills weren't even trimmed out when we moved in. Like, it was at least.
Remind me of what year was that you moved in with your grandparents again for the second time?
I moved in with my grandparents in 2005.
2005.
I stayed with them till the fall of 2006, and I started building that barn. And in 2007, moved into the barn, and then started working on like design. I just started getting back into hunting and fishing, and I took a couple of other vets out on for some deer hunts and some turkey hunts, and just getting back out and active again, trying to get my mind clear from all this stuff that's happened and all the challenges over the years. And then, you know, one of my friends went out shooting with me, and we were having fun, just shooting fast. And I had watched a video of bump firing on YouTube, and I had a Bushmaster Colt Carbon. And so one of the light carbon fiber lowers, and Bushmaster had actually helped me out. I had called them up. I was like, hey, I can't afford one of your new rifles, disabled vet. Like, do y'all have any blemished models or blah, 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 blah. And they worked out something to where I could actually afford to get one. And so the Slide Fire was actually built on a Bushmaster AR. And
well, what was the, so you're back into the hunting and the fishing, you're getting out to nature, you're shooting, and then you come across this friend that.
Yeah. And so we were shooting fast, and like, so he shoots real quick, we're doing some rapid firing, and I popped that AR-15 down on my belt loop, like you've seen many times on YouTube where people.
Because you watch YouTube.
Yeah. Like off the bump firing, and just go, and you start shooting into the backstop of the tank dam. And bullets, of course, go everywhere because you're firing from your hip.
Yeah.
And
no control.
Right. And about that time, I hear one of my granddad's cows go, moo. And I'm like, oh, man, I hope I didn't hit a cow.
Oh.
But it got me thinking. I was like, if you can use physics to fire the firearm that way from your hip, there's got to be a way to actually hold the firearm properly and do the same thing safely. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I played with a couple of different designs, a couple slings. Nothing worked really well, and nothing that I would pay money for. And then I took a little bit of time off, and one night it popped into my head. And have you ever seen the first one, the picture of the very first one? The 2x10 PVC pipe and duct tape? Tommy texted that to me.
No, I haven't. You got it?
Yeah, Tommy gave it to you.
Oh, sweet.
And so go get it. Here. Yeah, go get it off the wall.
Get it. If you've got it there, let's see it.
The ATF actually let me keep this one. I've got a letter from the ATF calling it a non-functioning prototype. So whenever they destroyed all my stuff that I'm sure we'll talk about later, like they actually I was like, I'm not taking it. They're like, we're not going to destroy your prototypes. And I'm like, I'm not going to jail either. And they're like, well, here. I'm like, I'm not going to jail. You have to give me an invoice saying I can keep it. And they gave me an invoice and wrote me a letter saying,
oh, nice.
I was like, yeah. So I've still got my prototypes, which that was really cool. But it's literally a 2x10 duct tape and PVC pipe. And
that was the first.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a first working model. Tommy's bringing it in right now. The only problem is, like, when you take off your pistol grip, what happens? Your safety falls out. Right? Yeah. So here's the first one. Show them, Tommy.
Let me get a close up there. Yeah. So piece of wood, there's the PVC, there's the duct tape.
Yeah. And if you can lean it over maybe and see a little bit of the, so I just dremeled out the internals in there a little bit so that the trigger group could fit in there. And man, that thing works so freaking good.
That is awesome.
Yeah. So that's literally the proof of concept model. And then I have.
Is that what you sent to the ATF?
No, I've got about 3 or 4 more renditions. I actually got really close to the production model before I sent it to the ATF because I wanted it to be as close to what the public was going to get so there would be no misunderstandings.
Yeah.
And so like the next model was made out of 1/2-inch square tubing, and I used my limited welding skills to like weld it up and get it all nice so it actually resembles a stock. And then after that, I was like, okay, now take this back. I'm a dirt farmer from West Texas. I know nothing. Like, I don't know business. I don't know taxes. I don't even know injection molding, CAD, any of those things.
Yeah, all that.
But I know how to be a soldier and I know how to mow yards. So lo and behold, the buddy I'm showing them to the whole bump stock thing has an engineering degree from A&M.
Oh,
Yeah. So I'm like, dude.
stars are aligned.
That's been the last 20 years.
So this is the guy that you were out shooting fast with.
Yeah.
Um,
He's feeding cattle for his father-in-law, and he's got an engineering degree from A&M.
you design this thing in your barn, and you bring him out and you show him this. What's his initial when you first show him that? What's he say?
He was like, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing!" Like he's shocked how good it works too.
Yeah.
And so
So
these
exactly
things,
putting on that Bushmaster, and you're like, hold my beer, watch this.
man, I wish. So I didn't get a cell phone until I was 35. I was too poor. Even when I was in the military, man, I lived on like 28 grand a year. And with 2 kids, like you can't do much else. So like my lunch budget for the week was $20 for the whole week. Like, thank goodness the chow hall. Yeah, the chow hall's $2.50. So you can literally eat at the chow hall Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And then you still have $10 that you can go to Subway with everybody else. So you don't feel like the poor person. But because most of these guys have wives that are enlisted or working, and like they're living off their paycheck, and then they're banking their spouse's paycheck. That wasn't the way my life worked. So it was, but no, it's been the stars aligned, and like I showed it to him, and he's like, "Man, this is amazing." I'm like, "I got to figure out somebody who knows how to do computer-aided design. Like, I've got to get this into a 3D model so that I can like do a 3D print of this."
Yeah, get the mill specs and everything to fit on.
Just start getting it, because at that point it was a piece of metal, but it didn't have, like, you couldn't put the safety in the gun. It didn't have a lock switch on the back, so it would just fall off the gun. And like there was a lot of things that you had to make changes, and you see that through the multiple designs down there. And I'll send you a video of those where you can see all the first models.
Got like a maturation process of
Yeah,
the design.
the transition from proof of concept.
I need to come up there and just visit the tour.
Sit
Yeah,
around,
that'd be cool.
sit around the fire pit, drink some whiskey, tell some stories.
Don't
Right.
tease me. It's a good time. Hell yeah.
We'll
I'll
do
bring
it.
steaks.
I got the grill. Like we'll get it down like a good time. But so
Yeah.
I had to learn all of these processes, and I was just applying the same problem solvings that my granddad had taught me. Was like, okay, this is cool, but you can't sell something that falls off the gun and makes the safety not work.
Yeah.
So that's where like I designed the interface.
So you're bringing your family in to get their input on it, and
no, like that's not typically how my brain works. So like typically it's one of those things that I just grind. Most people look at me really weird when I start talking about my ideas. So like it's not something that I've got to get it a long way down the road before I typically get help. Most of them look at me like, really? Like, what are you going to try to do?
like, okay.
Yeah. And so once I get it like way down the road, typically I can get some help. But most of the time, for the first little bit, it's just
now this bump stop. This is your first attempt at
anything. Yeah, this is the first attempt. And what's funny was because like when I made the wooden one, my first thing was like, what do I do with this? It's cool, but what do I do with it? And I remembered Grant Robinson, who was my ag teacher in Warren High School, and he actually came and worked for Slide Fire a couple of years later. I remember in 9th grade, he had told me a story. This was probably early 90s. And you remember those round hay bale blinds that look like a hay bale?
Yeah.
This was probably 92, and they were just getting big. And he told me a story about a time that Grant Robinson was like 6'5", 450 pounds. He was a big man.
Jeez.
And he was like, yeah, I had that idea back in the late 70s when I was teaching in Cisco, and just never did anything with it. And now somebody's making millions of dollars selling that blind. And that's kind of what that's exactly what went through my head, was that exact.
Somebody's going to beat you to the punch.
That's the story that he told me. And it wouldn't necessarily even beat me to the punch, but I believe if the universe chooses to bless you and you ignore it, it will find somebody else. And I looked at this and I was like, there's no way. This is so simple, but it works so amazingly well. And I was like, I've got to do something with it or somebody else will do it. This is too cool not to share. And that started.
What point did you know the patent on it?
After the ATF approved it.
After the ATF approved it?
Because here's the thing. It's I'm poor. Patents are expensive. Patents are about 15, 18 grand to get a patent.
Yeah.
And, just to get it started, several $1,000s, and you may come back with a search that says you can't have a patent. So I wanted to make sure that that the development process was far enough along to cover all of the technology. Then two, make sure I wasn't wasting my money.
Yeah. Who did you turn to in the firearms industry to let you know? It's like, hey, you got this thing, you got to send it to the ATF. Who did you latch on to get you the information that you needed on the process to get something approved?
So
do your own research on the internet.
Well, there's two stories. If we can just back a little bit up to the patent. Yeah. The patent thing was really, really interesting. Actually, we'll go back and answer your first one. As far as the ATF goes, that sort of came to the conclusion of the guy that was helping me draw it up in CAD. He was like, he brought that to my attention. He's like, hey, before you go anywhere, and you go any further with this and invest any money in a patent and everything like that, you really need to consider if the ATF's going to sign off of it. And I was like, okay, that's logical, right? So I mailed it in. I believe it was December of 2009. And
did you call the ATF before you sent it? You said, hey, I got this idea for a thing.
I just wrote them a letter and told them how to use it. And I was like, hey, it allows you to where you can bump fire safely. You can actually hold the gun and bump fire. Yeah. And then I had done I'd done several hunting things with some quadriplegics and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know this, I do now, but quadriplegics, even if you're quadriplegic, you still may have some limited use of your arms and hands. And one of the hunts that I went out with, the guy was strong enough to actually hold the gun, but he didn't have finger strength. He couldn't pull the trigger. And I was like, you could actually design the bump stock to actually put a rod in front of the pistol or where the finger rest is. And then all you have to do to activate the gun is push it forward and then apply 5 pounds of pressure and the trigger breaks and he shoots. And for someone like him, he could actually use that. And so I just put that in the letter too. I said, in addition, this could be used for this purpose.
For handicapped people. Yeah.
Right. In addition, I never said that was the primary purpose. I said that could be a use for it. And I still believe that as well. I think we can make different.
Completely legit. Yeah.
So that's where that came from. I sent that letter in. I believe I followed up with them in March and they said it was still on the desk. And I think it was June, we actually got the letter back, got the prototype back and said, hey, you're good to go.
This is 2010, 2009?
2010. And started getting the steel cut, got the patent on its way, got the provisional patent in place. The patent story is actually pretty interesting because after I got that, from the ATF, I'm like, okay, how do I protect this? So one of the things that I started doing as a hobby because I couldn't drive was I started reloading. I would pick up my brass and reload because I could shoot 3 times as much if I picked up my brass and reloaded it. Yeah. And it's funny how everything goes back to how poor you are sometimes. But so I started reloading a whole bunch. And I completely forgot where I was going with this story.
The patent. Yeah.
So the Hornady lock and load system, which is one of the cheapest progressive reloading presses out there, is what I bought. It actually works pretty good, but their powder drop system that flares cased ammunition is not great. And back then it was just forums and like ar15.com and stuff like that to get information. I had met a guy online that made a replacement powder drop measure for the Hornady lock and load, and he patented it. And he's just a regular Joe Blow that I bought 2 of them from him. And so whenever I came up with Slide Fire, I had met him a couple of years just via chat. Never met him in real life. I mean, I wouldn't be able to contact him now. And he's the one that pointed me to my current patent attorney that I've used for the last 14 years. And I'm sure John has his information and can get back in touch, but it's crazy how everything got put in place. Now, this patent attorney I used, not only has he written 18 different patents for me, but those patents have held up in federal court whenever a Cuban and a Russian actually in Miami started knocking off my intellectual property.
Right.
We had to take them to federal court, and like they put my patents into revision just as a delay tactic, and all 6 of the patents came back certified intact, which is just a testament to how good of a patent attorney
he is. Yeah.
And he just like the universe just put him in the right place at the right time. I was like, wow. So when you ask those questions, I've been very blessed and very fortunate for the right people in my life to show up at the right time, starting with my grandparents till Tommy Cooksey. Like, it's one of those things. It's like I'm very fortunate and very blessed.
The idea of bringing on and procuring the farm-to-table beef aspect was high on my list. Being a third-generation farmer, I really focused on the elements of how healthy my life was and needed to be, and I wanted to send that same message and bring that same value to the consumers that are outside. So Whiskey River Beef came to fruition in the beginning of 2023, and here we are today.
Go to whiskeyriverbeef.com today to order. Visit us on Instagram at Whiskey River Life and on Facebook at Whiskey River Beef LLC. Whiskey River Beef is a proud sponsor of the Talking Lead podcast and the Leadhead Brigade. Use the code TalkingLead10 for 10% off all orders.
So I consider myself.
Well, that's a good segue, and let's talk about Tommy. So introduce Tommy to the Leadhead Brigade here.
Okay, so this is Tommy Cooksey. So he's
been sitting there patiently quiet this whole time.
Well,
I've heard it 100 times, and I can just listen to it all day.
Well, yeah. Well, here's the thing. It's like when all this went down.
You can say that on my show.
Okay, when all this shit went down, like, so me and Tommy have known each other for about 3 years now. Like when I came to Knoxville, like me and Tommy didn't even know each other, but he kept me in his house for a week. And since then, like, he's a good dude. Like, good dudes. And that don't come lightly from me. And whenever all this went down with the Supreme Court, he's out on the lake with his boat, hanging out with his friends and family and just chilling because it's a Sunday. And I'm like, I know where Tommy is. I'm like, hey, what are you doing Thursday? He's like, I don't know. Is there a possibility of death? I said, I got a plane coming in and I'm flying us to San Antonio. So the probability is high. I've already crashed one plane at this point. So I'm like, like I haven't flown in 4 years and I've only flown a couple times since I crashed.
And you haven't driven in 6, so you're just take a plane up.
Yeah, I'm like, why not? What else could go on?
He jumps in the plane with me. I'm like, we got to go recover some tooling from San Antonio. He jumps in the plane with me. We fly 7 hours down to land in San Antonio. We land, and he's like, wow, you actually can fly an airplane.
Yeah, I was kind of skeptical. I was like, yeah, whatever.
This is the guy that jumps on and shows up whenever you say I need help. Like, he's that guy. So he's a absolute meticulous planner. He's going to handle the operations, like the dealers, and making sure everything's moving and flowing, and make sure the customers are getting good response, deliveries go out on time, make sure the quality and support's there, while I work on the design side. Because like running a massive business takes an unbelievable amount of energy. And that's one thing I learned from the last time is my company suffered when I tried to do it all alone. And I didn't have the people that I needed to do those things.
Surround yourself.
Right. And so this time, like Tommy's going to head up operations. He's going to keep everything on the front end streamlined. And I'll let him talk about his background a little bit so he can introduce himself. But that's who he is to me.
Well, I mean, so yeah, some of the people watching may have already had some contact with me. I'm answering emails at 2:00 in the morning. I've got this thing automated. I'm actually operating about 4 or 5 different email addresses, handling all the customer service stuff, the ordering, the manufacturing, the material sourcing, you name it. It's a lot, but it's not a lot if you get ahead of it. So, that's where we're trying to stay. People are, if I order today, when will my order ship? Well, if 1,000 of you order today, I'm going to need 2 days, probably. But typically, the orders are shipping out the next day now. There was a big, massive run on this thing. As you can imagine, as soon as the Supreme Court had made their ruling.
Yeah.
And, yeah. So, me and Jeremiah have actually known each other about 4 years now. We're still working on the brain thing. No, it's been about 4 years now. And, just happenstance. We met through another mutual friend, and, Jeremiah needed a place to stay to come up here to hunt for some property. And I'm just like, yeah, what's up? Who's this guy? And, I was like, sweet, you stay at my house. And I'm like,
now, did y'all have like a mutual friend that introduced you? Or
Right. Yeah, we had a mutual friend, and it was like, hey, my buddy's coming up. He needs a place to chill. He's going to be, trying to find some property and move here and everything else. And me and my wife were empty nesters, and I'm like, yeah, sweet. And so he showed up, and our mutual friend was actually out of town for about 6 or 7 days, and Jeremiah doesn't have nowhere to go or nowhere to be. So I'm like, you stay as long as you want. And he's like, well, I'm looking for some property in a house. You want to go? And so, we're walking across farms and houses and everything, and, going out to eat, hanging out. And here
it's
we
like
are.
3 years ago. Is that?
Yeah, roughly, maybe a little more.
That's right when I retired my real estate license.
Yeah. And, I've been in the, I was in the Army and the military, and I've been in law enforcement / military, did some private contract work. I'll tell you what, we'll give it a good test. So I know some of your viewers, I don't know. So, cause I'm in the alumni groups, right? So I'm one of the original,
tactical response.
No. In my alumni group, I see it all the time, cause they're like, who the F is this dude? So, I'll just say it out loud, and it'll be cool for your viewers, I guess. But I was one of the original Blackwater guys, 6 years in the Middle East. Yeah. And so they're like, who the is this Tommy guy? Anybody know this guy? I'm talking lead poser, right? It's fine, because I see it all the time in our alumni, a bumper sticker.
CJ Johnson?
Probably.
He's involved with that stuff. Mookie, Mookie. Ben Mookie.
So, I didn't have to have any surgeries, but I took some blows to the head. Matter of fact, I had an MRI done this morning. Yeah.
Was that from Jeremiah? Is it?
No.
Is landing on that airplane? Is it?
No.
It's from all the blowing doors off hinges.
It's from probably. It's just the story of
my
life.
ILS is off on that airplane.
Yeah.
How many entries? Like, you've probably blown 400 doors. Like every time you get a concussion, you do that. You realize that, right?
Probably. Yeah. I'm like just one away from Muhammad Ali. But no, I say that. I say the Blackwater thing, because I see the guys all the time in our alumni groups. I'm very silent, by the way, in the groups, and
sure.
It's like guys down in Florida visiting, vacationing, and there's a bumper sticker on a Jeep, and it's like, who's this effing poser? That's the funny part of it, right? And right. So it's like it's legit. Yeah, I know thousands of guys, and some know me, and somebody can send your
military. Talk about your military. But you said you're in the military.
I was a 91 Bravo combat medic in the Georgia Army National Guard. I'm originally from Georgia, and I was a deputy at the same time in Augusta, Georgia. Just got smashed by the hurricanes and all that good stuff. So I was kind of in a dual hat down there, and then I was, with the sheriff's office. I was on the SWAT team, and I got this. I heard this background noise about this company looking for medics and guys, and there was a couple Marine Corps guys in the court.
What year
one of the classes I was in was 2004. One of the classes that I was in. some long range stuff. And I just heard it. I went home and looked it up online. It was a 1-page website. And, matter of fact, when you hit it to apply, it was like, I think it was Blackwater USA at yahoo.com. I mean, that's how long ago it was, right?
Yeah.
I'm actually, I just look good for my age. I'm actually 61. No, I'm not. But
You're the same age.
Yeah, we're actually the same
We're the
age.
same age.
Yeah, 48.
I'm 53.
So, I hit the button, man. I sent him my probably poorly written resume at the time, and
I shoot people.
Yeah, and next thing I know, I'm over in Iraq in August of 2004, and leave there, go to Afghanistan in 2006. I leave there in June 2010, and I go to some other federal government stuff. It's not crazy, but I won't, get into all that. Fast forward to 2020. What was that?
How did you end up in East Tennessee?
So it's part of the other government stuff. There's some weird stuff going on up here.
We got those nuclear facilities up there.
Some of those, yeah. So I don't know how, I'll just, we'll just leave it at that part. We can let everybody.
Were you retired when you met Jeremiah?
No, actually, no.
4 years ago?
Yeah, I have like 4 or 5 jobs, actually. I do all kind of things. I need about 3 Monster energy drinks, 3 hours of sleep, and 3 extra days a week, and I can get it all done.
Man, no bullshit. Then
Yeah.
You were drinking 8 2
well,
months ago.
Okay,
Like he was drinking 8 Monsters a day. And eating.
You're lucky you got an intestine. Holy shit!
That's why.
But here's the crazy part: his resting heartbeat's like 2.
No, it's like 62.
but
But
still,
still,
that's after he's eaten breakfast and drank 2 Monsters, or like fast. He's like,
Yeah.
I'm not fasting. This is how my blood normally is.
Yeah. But I mean, so that's just a little bit about me. Look, I'm not a savvy IT guy. I'm very strategic in my planning and processes and everything.
That's a good word, strategic. You're strategic,
right? Businesses of my own. So Jeremiah's like, hey, this is happening. So we're like literally on the airplane ride, and then we spent some nights awake. I mean, we were getting tooling kits
We
and
spent
things.
8 days and covered
4,400 miles. Yeah. And it was like, deliver this, drop off this, get these people, get everybody, online and where everything needed to be, and press the start button. And here we are. And it's taken a little bit, and the customers have been great. The people have been great. It's been, the response has been amazing. There was some ball dropping in the beginning, right? If anybody out there hasn't been taken care of, feel free to reach out to us at the slidefire@customerservice.com. Hit us on the contact page on our website. I feel like now we've gotten
one of the biggest
away.
challenges that we had to go through was like when the Fifth Circuit overruled everything, like trying to find a payment processor that would allow me to conduct business was extremely difficult. And like the first payment
industry in general,
well, I mean, difficult. Like the first person that I had to go with was they worked in the cannabis and porn industry as a processor, and we had to pay like 5.5% just to use them. But like after a year, which while that Fifth Circuit was happening, we've gotten to move back to one of our old processors now, so that's not the case. But that's an unbelievably difficult thing to navigate typically, especially like we can't ship our product to FedEx. Well, there is a clause in FedEx that says no bump stocks. And I'm like, you assholes. Like
specifically, they put that in there.
Oh yeah,
page 457.
They're losing business, so fuck them.
Know how much hundreds of thousands of dollars they made in shipping during Vegas? Like there was 13,000 orders that went out that next day, that's how many were placed over the next 3 weeks. Like I had to pay them like $180,000 in shipping that month, and now they're just refusing to do business. I'm
Well,
like, this,
yeah, it's their loss. That's the
And
way.
their last quarter earnings were also down.
Yeah.
So,
let's go
like,
UPS.
don't take our money.
Yeah, you use UPS, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
What about just standard U.S. Postal Service? Can you use them?
We can, and
Yep.
we do at times. That was actually one of the things that I stood by in the very, very beginning. So out in the remote town that I lived in with 250 people, the only two things we had in town was the post office and the bank.
Yeah.
So like all of Slide Fire's transactions went through the post office and the bank for the majority of the time I had it out there, just so the government wouldn't like shut them down or the bank wouldn't shut down from lack of business. And that was, my grandmother was a mail carrier out there in Moran. She actually retired from the post office there. So that was always a concern that they were going to eliminate those jobs and give those routes to someone else. So I always, like, one of the things for my company was to make sure that we sent out enough packages through the postal service to keep those jobs in that community available.
Yeah.
So just some of the small things that I tried to keep in mind whenever I was running my business.
June this year
Mhm.
is when I guess they overturned the ATF's ruling and said, "Hey, bump stocks are fine. You can have them." I'm sure you probably knew that was coming. Were you confident this whole time that this is going to get overturned, or were you just shocked when they?
I knew it would get overturned if the Supreme Court was ever forced to hear it. Because I've got it on I got interviewed on that back in, I believe it was March, before they issued the ruling. And because if they did not rule in our favor, our country would be unrecognizable in 5 years. Yeah, I mean, it nearly already is. But if they said the president of the United States could change the rules to anything that he wanted, anytime he wanted, and pass new rules, our democracy is over. Our republic is done. And that's what was up for vote there. And I'm shocked it wasn't 9-0. But I understand, because two of the justices couldn't even comprehend. They went, "Oh, it goes fast, so that must make it a machine gun." And I'm like, "No, you're an idiot."
Sometimes it's comical to listen to them try to talk it out.
If it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's a duck. And I'm like, no, it could be a robot that Elon Musk made. That's just stupidity. It's a duck if it's a duck.
Yeah.
We know what a duck is. So if it's a duck, it's a duck.
Exactly.
That type of rationale and thinking, and to think that came from somebody that sits on the highest court, that's her thinking, that like a duck sounds like a duck, must be a duck. Everyone should be terrified. I
was reading some of their opinions on it, and I was getting that same thing. It's like the world.
You're an idiot. You're so dumb. How did you get here? There's DEI in the process right there.
There you go. Yeah, the Secret Service, baby. I want to talk to you about that too before we get off here too. I want to get your opinions on the Trump assassination and all that. But going back to the June 14th, and you hear the ruling, are you on the phone immediately? All right, let's get everything geared back up. Let's get this baby going. Or
okay, so here's the thing. It's I knew a ruling was coming, and because they had said that they were going to rule it in this course, and I knew that they typically announced on Thursdays. So I figured they were going to wait till the last Thursday of June. And I had a buddy of mine call me from Texas, and he was like, "Hey, can you come down and spend some time?" He don't ever call. So if he calls, I'm coming type thing. Yeah. And he was like, I want to go alligator gar fishing and bow fishing. And so we went down there, and I was out shooting alligator gars till 5:30 in the morning that morning. And I was asleep. I just woken up to go use the restroom, and I looked at my phone, and it's got 57 text messages and 20 phone calls. I'm like, what the hell? They're like, "Congratulations." And then one of them was CBS or ABC News. And I was like, I guess I'm not going back to sleep.
I got to ask you about the ABC News interview too.
Yeah.
But go ahead. Finish.
But it was crazy. It went straight into that. I was literally in South Texas alligator gar fishing till 5:30 in the morning. I was hoping it would come down later in the month so that I could what sometimes
Not be tired.
not be tired. Like, listen, like as soon as it came down, I knew a lot of very big things were going to have to happen, like fly to San Antonio and drive for 8 days and cover 4,400 miles in a box trailer that couldn't go faster than 50 miles an hour. And
I've been tired ever since.
Yeah, pretty much.
We're really
So like,
stopped.
yeah, that's kind of how it happened. It was like, oh, like, and
I kind of already had things lined up. It's like, if it goes our way.
Yeah, I had the tooling in Texas. So I know there was a question online about how involved was I with the Supreme Court litigation process. And I want to go ahead and address that because
sure,
time to ask the question.
We're going to get into all the questions. But just so this was P-Man, and P-Man is an attorney.
Okay.
He says, how involved was he in the litigation culminating with the Supreme Court? If he was, what was the most shocking lie that came from anyone representing the government in reference to bump stocks?
Okay, so I'll answer the first one as far as my involvement, and then I'll answer the whole shocking lie part. Let me make sure I follow up on that.
Sure.
So, I personally, at the time, I referred to my attorney. I was like, hey, and it's Scott Riddle out of Dallas. He's been with Slide Fire for a decade now. And I was like, and I trust him as a good friend. And I was like, what should I do right now? And he just straight told me, he's like, let the firearm lobby groups take care of it. He's like, if you put your name on it, it will cause too much heat. Like, it will tarnish the chances of getting it through. And so we just stepped back and monitored everything. And of course, GOA found their plaintiff that posed the best chance, one of our dealers, Michael Cargill, and pushed that thing all the way through. Now, like, I absolutely monitored the case all the way through because when the Fifth Circuit came through, made those actions happen. But I just stepped back and actually let those guys that had access to attorneys that are good at this actually do this. And then my response was, these people have put in the hard work. I went to DC, I went to the Supreme Court, I've given the interviews, I'm telling my story now. And then I'm back now. Like, that was a big thing for me. Like, I'm tired. I'm older now. Like, there's a lot of things that you have to give up in life to dedicate this many hours to building a business. There's a lot of people out there, and anybody that's built a business will tell you, like, it's not easy. And starting those things all up again are very, very challenging, and you have to make sacrifices because everything comes at a cost.
Yeah.
And I am just recently married. I met my wife nearly 3 years ago. She's an amazing woman. Just
best wishes to you guys. You're still newlyweds.
Absolutely. And she is, and when you're starting a business and men get focused on those things, like, other things suffer. And I didn't know if I wanted to risk sacrificing a relationship, or actually, I did not want to risk sacrificing my relationship for the cost of pursuit of wealth. So what I did is I developed a plan to where I can bring my molds back online, put somebody in that's going to absolutely help take the workload off of me on those ends, allow me to get back in front of my sketchboard, and still maintain my relationship with the person that I love. So,
now, did you get married in Gatlinburg?
No, we actually got married here at Ancient Lore Village. It was a Viking wedding. Like, Tommy was,
amazing.
He was the priest of discord.
Oh my gosh, Ton would be so jealous. Ton, good friend of mine.
Like, I'll shut up.
You met Ton, didn't you, Tommy?
At the GOA?
Yeah, he was at the Firebird Target booth.
Okay, yes.
The big guy with the tattoos all over his head.
Yeah.
He's all about Viking stuff. Wait, let me make the screen big. Oh, that is awesome.
It was awesome. It was an awesome time.
Viking
Like, that's the
look at that.
Yeah.
That looks fun.
Oh, it was the best celebration I've ever had.
It was the best wedding I've ever been to.
I can imagine.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, when you come up, I'll tell you.
It was a whole group. It wasn't just three of us. There was a lot of people there.
Oh yeah, we basically, Alyssa and I sat down and we just made a list of the people that we have so much fun around, and was like, let's invite those people. And I believe there's about 40 people. We just
That's
had
the way to do it, man.
We didn't have to leave. We stayed the night
Yeah.
inside this themed park.
Yeah, it was
And,
like
I mean, it was
Lord of the
just-
Rings,
yeah,
like the little Hobbit
man.
houses.
It was awesome. It was
Amazing.
awesome.
They had axe throwing and bows.
Bow and arrows.
You did that there in East Tennessee.
Dude. Oh yeah. Right
Very
there.
nice.
Well,
Yeah.
come on
About
up.
40 minutes from here, actually.
Yeah, come on up. We'll do that again. I think we're going out for Halloween and taking over the city.
Yeah.
I'm in.
Just
All
do
right.
it. See what happens. There you go.
I got the hair. I don't have the beard. I cut my beard, but
That's all right. Just put
That's
on
all right.
the
We
war
don't
paint.
have the hair.
Halloween, I can wear. I can.
That's why I wanted to put a hat on. I was like, man, I keep seeing my hair thinning back here. I'm gonna put my hat back on.
Well, let's do this since we went ahead and jumped into the questions.
Yeah.
Let's go over our questions. What we do is I was telling you earlier is
Did
we.
I follow up and answer the second half of that question?
Oh, the second half was
I don't think so.
The lie. The biggest lie.
Oh yeah, the biggest lie that you heard them.
Okay, so this is the biggest lie is during all of this crap, nobody came and asked me how a bump stock works. Like ever until ABC did that report like in February. Like you would think if you're trying to define what a bump stock is, you would ask the guy that made it.
That invented it.
And so, and I go to this because Florida has a law on the books right now that's a bump stock ban law that's very similar to what I'm talking about. It's a 2-part ban. They go, bump stocks are illegal. What's a bump stock? And they define it. And it's 2 pieces. One of it increases the cyclic rate of a firearm. And then the other one is like it starts an automatic cycling process or something like that, or it increases the cyclic rate of a firearm. I mean, and then when you look at those 2 laws, the Supreme Court just shut that completely down. And the reason why I say that's the biggest lie is because they said it started an automatic firing cycle. The whole point that makes a bump stock legal is every round that you fire, you have to push the firearm forward. Right. And there's nothing automatic about it. And what they were saying is when you push it forward the first time, it just starts bumping around and shooting itself. And that was the biggest lie, is it doesn't do that. And I put that out on one of my Instagram things after the 5th Circuit. I was like, there's a lot of disinformation here. Is when you pull the firearm forward and it fires, it doesn't bump back and forth. It goes backwards because of the recoil, but you have to move the firearm forward every time. So it doesn't just start an automatic cycling process, which is what the ATF was trying to tell the Supreme Court to get it banned. And thankfully, the Supreme Court's not stupid. And
well,
not all of them.
Not all of them.
They can understand the mechanics because that was the biggest lie. And it's still out there massively. Is they're like, as soon as it starts bump firing, it just starts doing it all by itself. And I'm like, no, if you take your hand off of it, it stops. Like you have to move it forward every time. And that's probably the biggest lie. They lied to everybody.
Well, that, and it's still a single trigger pull. It's
absolutely.
Trigger pull.
Right. So that was the biggest lie, is they miscategorized how the product actually worked. And like I said, with the Florida law, I just haven't looked at it in a couple of months. If you look at the Florida's law and you read what they say a bump stock is, you're like, a bump stock doesn't even do that. It doesn't increase the cyclic rate. The Supreme Court said that, and it doesn't start an automatic firing process, or it doesn't. I'm like, how do these laws stay on the books?
Yeah.
Like it's unenforceable at this point.
Defining what they're outlawing.
Right. You've defined something that doesn't exist.
That's not that. It's
right.
Not a live fire. It's not a bump stock.
Exactly.
They define something else.
And some of the designs that I have are not stocks. I mean, they're platforms. Like there's an old, I believe it's 2014 SHOT Show that I brought out what I always called the lead sled. So like I had a design for a product that it's down in the shop. I actually brought that with me from Texas.
I like that. That's what I call my truck, the lead sled.
It's literally a platform that you mount an AR-15 upside down on, and you have a pencil mounted system where you just push the gun forward and it's like, da, 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 da. And I built that because my son at the time was only 9 years old and he couldn't hold an AR-15. And when I went out to the range, he wanted to shoot. So I built him a little platform like that. And we called it the bump box or the lead sled because it would bump around. You're like, don't shoot the buggy. So I mean, like I had that one.
Bar above it. Yeah.
That's one of the things that's patented. I did a proof of concept model at SHOT Show, like I said, at the range day. I think that was 2014. But there's a lot of different products out there that in designs, similar things that I've done like that doesn't necessarily design around the stock itself. So I'm like,
well, they have those trigger systems out now, the binary triggers.
They have binary triggers. They have echo or the FRTs. And actually, you can call my patent attorney. I had the FRT design on my patent list in 2011.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot of things that I did not design and patent because I was too busy with the other 18 patents I was working on. That was one of them. You can call him. He'll tell you. I called it the final solution. Because like at that point, like an FRT trigger is, I mean, as close to full auto as you can get. I don't think they're full autos. They don't meet the definition, but that's going to be a hard fight.
Fostech has one that
the echo trigger.
I installed it wrong apparently, but I went out this weekend and I shot the bump stock, the slide fire. First time I've ever shot one. Had a great time, but I had that trigger too, and I had it in another gun, and I was going to like try to compare them, and but apparently I fucked up and did something wrong with the Fostech, so I gotta go back and try reinstalling it. So
well, I mean, and a lot of people don't know much about the history here. Is like Fostech used to be a slide fire dealer back in 2011. Fostech was created because of slide fire.
I did not. David's company.
You mean Judd? His brother passed away.
Well, yeah, it was Judd.
David's the machinist, the designer. So, like, Judd was one of the salesmen for Fostech when they started, and they sold thousands of bump stocks for us. Wow. And then they went and copied it. And we had a lawsuit about that. We had an agreement, and they have a license now to manufacture the metal version from us. But we hold all the patents. They gave us the Aikens accelerator patent that they used.
Yeah.
So
when you started off, were they originally metal? The slide fire?
No, they've always been polymer until we brought the hybrid model in for the AK in 2015, I believe it was.
Yeah.
It's just like machining's expensive, and to get the volume that you need is difficult.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
it just makes sense to make it out of the polymer.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you can actually deliver the product.
And, probably sturdier and last longer. And the weight keeps the weight down, too.
Yeah.
But
they have that echo trigger, which works. Like, I've had a couple of them. Me and Judd knew each other well. I believe he passed away in COVID. And
this is a part that I lost when I was trying to build it. They just...
That echo trigger is like a grenade. If you accidentally trigger it before you get it in the gun, it turns into 100 pieces. Like I had two of them. One of them did that. I just scooped it up in the pile and got the other one.
I was looking for my box that's got all the pieces in it. When I took it out, it did that. It just
and here's the thing: is like the one that did the pieces works really good, but like I would never be able to get it together.
Yeah, I'll have to find a video to put it back. But,
oh my goodness!
But I did take it. I wanted to show you the. I don't know if you saw the Instagram post that I did or not, but I did a little for our questions.
Yeah.
Are you seeing it?
No, we're seeing the
slide fire.
Oh, hold on.
There it is.
Oh yeah.
Is it?
It's got the bump stock. Was that?
That's you.
Yeah.
That's me.
Yep.
I'll probably put 6 mags through it.
Yeah.
Just trying out, because again, I'd never shot it, and the first time I did it, I mean, it was just natural. I mean, I made it work the first time.
That's what was shocking to me about the one that I call the Bodor, the big wooden one. Like, it worked really well. And what I found is with most people, it takes 1 to 2 magazines to get the hang of it. That
was my first mag right there, the one you saw there, the clear mag, and then the blue mag was my second mag. And then this, I wanted to just try to see if I could control it on that second one, just if I could do like burst.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
fun because like you can literally make the gun do whatever you want it to do. If you want to shoot a long burst here, just through your body motions, you control how the gun fires. It's actually fun. I enjoy
It's like you said, it's your left hand, or if you're right hand or left handed, it's your right hand. But
it. Your non-dominant hand controls
Yeah.
this.
yeah, you just either stop that or you take your finger off the.
Have you seen any of those the gun drummer videos?
Who's that?
He does some YouTube stuff and Instagram, and he basically takes guns and fires and shoots them to like heavy metal. And like, and it's just cool listening to him because it's like artwork. Well, we sent him a slide fire and he started doing some different music. And it's like,
It's
like
amazing.
Metallica.
You know, like Metallica and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
100
Yeah.
round drums.
Yeah,
like,
it's
da-da-da-da,
badass.
da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
And then he'll like do mag change. It's so cool to
Yeah.
watch.
Call
I'm
him
like,
up and look him up.
gun drummer.
Gun drummer. Okay, I'll look him up.
Yeah, he's got some really cool stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, you know what? You're such an artist to be able to take something.
Get him on the show.
Yeah, he's a cool.
He's a cool guy. And you could tell too. He's manipulating the rate of fire.
Yeah.
You know,
He's controlling it.
music, controlling it. You know, and timing it obviously into the beats. But it's pretty amazing stuff.
Yeah,
That's cool. That's cool.
the only people that have a really hard time that I've found are Marines. Because the Marines, they teach them to hold their guns.
Here come the comments.
Well, no, the Marines hold their guns so rigidly because they're kicking indoors and they don't want their gun. And I'm like, just relax and just shoot the gun gentle. And they're like, rah! And I'm like, you gotta relax. So they overpower the gun. And I'm like, if you don't let it recoil, it can't work. And they're like, rah!
Yeah.
So
Stalling it out. That's what we explained it to
Yeah.
people in emails. Like, you know, be careful, don't stall the gun out.
Right.
Too much forward force, just
Yeah.
you stop the whole
It's
process.
just and this is not a slight or you know, anything like that, but it's such a simple design.
Very.
It's so simple, but yet it's ingenious.
well,
Yeah.
and
What
You
you come
know-
up with and how you did it with the two. It's two pieces.
yeah,
Two pieces.
It's amazing, right?
It-
It's like, wow.
yeah, and that's why I'm like, well, that's going back to what I said. If I don't do this, somebody else will. And I've had people say this was genius, and it makes me feel weird every time people say this because trust me, I'm not a genius. I like to say I do what I'm told. Sometimes you don't get to do what you want to do. You got to do what you're told.
Well, you know, and this is kind of why I was getting deep into your brain injury and just kind of how you were before and how you were after, because, you know, again, like I said, a lot of people who have brain injuries come up with ingenious ideas, or, you know, things.
What's
And you know, it
Oh,
might not only for them, but for, you know, for America.
And you know what? And here's the funny thing is like over the last 6 years before June, like I've had some opportunities to sit back since 2018 and do some self-reflection and stuff like that and try to remember before the injury.
Yeah.
So,
Were you as motivated before?
No, I was as creative, just not as motivated. Something
Yeah.
changed. I had the creative spark all the way back whenever, like, I remember taking electronics apart, like I said, and those types of things. But like driving it into development, that came later.
Yeah.
And,
And again, not to insult you or anything, but Roseanne Barr had a major car accident before she got into comedy, and
yeah,
but after the brain injury, she just had this, you know, she wasn't afraid. She was became extroverted, and
well, I mean, and here's the thing is I'm very much interested.
several examples of that, not just her. I mean, there's I just can't think of them right now.
I think it might be because of the experience itself. You know, you live life very tentatively a lot of times. A lot of people are very afraid.
Right. That's the word.
And, you know, it's one of those things that I'm already living on borrowed time. Like when she shook me and told me I had to breathe, like we should have been gone.
Right.
So, like, everything else is just bonus. So like there's no failure at pushing as hard as you can. Like what can you do? Like you got kept here for some reason. So it's the pursuit of following those things. That's why I said sometimes you have to do the things you don't want to do. I would much rather sold my company and not had to do this. But sometimes you have to bring the end of the story, and sometimes you're the one that has to carry the cross.
Right.
So,
and I think I heard you in the interview too, is another reason why you wanted to continue this instead of selling it is to honor your grandparents.
absolutely. Like they are the story. Like my grandfather worked his entire life to the bone to take care of children that weren't his. And I remember very distinctly, he passed in 2014. So he, like the first 2.5 years solid, he handled all the quality control for Slide Fire. The only way I could keep him from going out during the summertime in Texas and plowing was to actually employ him. And when he would go, I need to go plow the fields. And I'm like, no, Mike will go plow the fields because he's the maintenance guy. And you can stay here and make sure every product goes out is perfect because I don't have time to do that. And that was the only way I could tell my granddad what to do.
Right.
And like this story is because of them. Like I am so fortunate and blessed that they raised me, that I got to experience that with them. And to just let the Supreme Court say, yeah, it was wrong, and not give a proper ending to something that my grandparents literally, think of this. You're 78, 82, 85 years old. Your grandson, like your family's still in poverty, and your grandson's the one that changes your family's name.
Yeah.
And to get to see that, like I hope before I pass, I get to see my grandchildren succeed. Like that's got to be awesome for him. And I remember like one day I was checking in on him on the quality control line, doing my rounds to the business. And he was like, I looked for black gold all my life because he was a pumper at part of his time on
for that oil. Yeah.
Yeah. And he goes, I've looked for black gold my whole life, and it's right here. He held up one of the OGRs.
That's awesome.
I'm like, he passed in 2014. Like I said, greatest man I've ever met in my life. It also motivated me very well because the last week that he was alive, they let him do home hospice. So he came home. And the last lucid conversation I had with him, he told me he was not ready to die yet.
Oh, man. Was it cancer?
Yeah. At 87 years old, this man had fought World War I, like had an amazing, my grandparents have been married for over 65 years. In 40 years or 37 years at the time, I had never heard either one of them say a negative thing about the other one. Not even like, I don't like your haircut. I'm like, that's unbelievable. And then at 87 years old, the last conversation I had with him, he tells me he's not ready to die yet. And that scared the shit out of me. So as soon as Slide Fire, at that point in 20,
got to hit hard, man. That's got to hit real hard.
You know what that did? Is that told me that there's a lot of shit I want to get done in this life, and I better hurry up.
Yeah.
So at that point, I made a plan, and
waits for no man.
Nope. And I said, there's a lot of things I want to do before I get old, and I got to get to a certain number. This is 2014, and I'm like, I've got to get to a number so that I can quit. Like that's why we're working, right? So that we can stop. Like
it's a weird process.
Yeah, I mean that's how I was working. Like I sit there going, I want to get to a point where I can stop. So what's that number? And I did the math and I found out that number. And what was sad about it was I had hit that number in 2013. And because of my divorce, I had also lost it all.
Mm-hmm.
And so in 2015, when I finally got my company free from under full control from my ex-wife, like I had to borrow money from my grandmother to make payroll. Wow. And I was in the process of basically going from building this massive company that had done millions of dollars over the course of 3.5 years to having it destroyed and then starting over again. Yeah. And when I started over again, I took my granddad's advice and I went, this is the number I've got to get to. And I was pissed at myself. I was like, I could have been done 2 years ago if I wouldn't have been stupid. And I just started working again. I started working again, and my plan was, I had plotted it all out. I'm like, I should get there about 2022, 2021, somewhere in that neighborhood, and then we'll figure out.
Yeah, because you already had the game plan laid out.
And I charted all the numbers, and then,
Yeah.
I was growing it like 15, 20% annually. So I was like, okay, if I keep this track, like I'll be done by 2022. So, but yeah, I mean, I wanted to get done so that I could go do those things that my granddad didn't get to do. Like, so.
But now, have you got a different mentality on that and making it a family legacy business now, or is it still something that you?
Well,
unfortunately,
I don't have much of a family. Like, and what I do as far as my kids go, like, they're not interested in this. The divorce was hard on everybody.
Sure.
But I am interested in growing this and it continuing on. Like, maybe one day this will be integrated into one of those companies that are already out there that can take the technology, can take the design work, can take the genre. Because there's a lot of people that like to go out there and just have fun with it.
Yeah.
And actually integrate this into their product lines so that I can bring it into this story, and the legacy does live on.
I'm glad you said that too, because, this was designed for fun.
Yes.
To enhance the range day.
Right.
Your range event.
Yeah.
It wasn't designed for any other purpose other than that. Other than, you said it does have some disability aspects to it to help, some of the able people, which I can see that. But I think that's a big misconception that people have also, is that range days are fun. People go out and have fun and enjoy themselves shooting guns. It's just a great pastime and a way for people to bond and, build friendships and families. I know a lot of families that go out and shoot together, and it bonds the family, keeps them together, gets them out of the house, something to do.
Well, and especially in more rural parts of America in the West, like, one of the biggest things I noticed living in East Tennessee versus West Texas is the location there's people all over the place here in East Tennessee. Like, in Texas, there's nobody. Like, you may
spread out so much.
You may be on 5,000 acres and you can stand on one end and see the other end. Like, so.
And
like,
nobody's in between.
Right. And there's nobody in between. So that also means there's nothing to do. So range days are like, hey, let's go start a fire and get the pistols out and practice some pistol shooting.
Yeah.
Because guess what? You're not going to watch a movie because there's no internet in the middle of nowhere, Texas.
Yeah.
So
that's where these Firebird targets come in. I don't know if you shot them.
We got those.
We haven't got to shoot them yet.
Yeah.
Oh, you got to shoot those. They're so much fun. They're so fun.
I love shooting skeet. It's so much fun.
And with your Halloween party, it'd be a great, little novelty for your Halloween. Put those on a pumpkin.
Yeah.
It'd be so much fun.
Oh yeah. I picked up a drum mag yesterday. I'm going to get do some carving with pumpkins later.
Oh, that'd be awesome. Well, let's get to our questions, because I know we're 2 hours into this, 2.5 almost.
Oh, yeah.
We got some prizes to give out today because, like I was telling you earlier, we like to reward our listeners, and we do that by the ones who participate. So I made a post before you guys came on asking for some questions directed towards you. We read one of them there with P-Man. That was a good question, and it was a very adult question of you, P-Man, to ask. Normally he'll ask about dicks or penises or something along with
buttholes. Like, that's all the jokes, right? That's what you say, Tommy. He's like, it's always dicks and buttholes, and people like
farts, dicks and buttholes.
Yeah. I'm like,
Behurst 87, which he was at the GOA thing too, so you may have met him, Tommy. He was walking around there, one of our listeners. And he's got this thing. So any bullpup ideas? I know Marco would buy one. So the AK corner that I do, I've got this Russian, former Soviet Spetsnaz. He's an American now citizen. that co-hosts the AK Corner with me.
Right.
And, he hates bullpups. So B. Hurst always asks some kind of question about a bullpup just to get under Marco's skin. So
well, I actually got an answer for that one. So we made I told you we were across 11 different platforms, and we made a platform for the Ruger 1022.
okay.
And it used the SBS model. So we built a chassis system, and I've always just wanted to build like an actual chassis for the 1022 that's a bullpup design and build that into it.
Nice.
So like that's my hopes on that one. I hadn't told you that one, have I?
Okay.
There's so many. There's so much. So dry erase board is full.
Yeah. So that to answer your question, like there's I would love to do that on 1022. I've got sheets.
It's on the drawing board.
Yeah, it is on the drawing board. Like,
that's
absolutely.
nice. That's nice. So you're talking about the other platforms, the 1022, the AR, the AK. What is I'm sure shotguns in there somewhere.
Well, shotguns just we did that with the Sega series back. They're just brutal. Like when you start rapping, it's like getting punched in the face 20 times. Like it's like shooting one of those Desert Eagle 50 AEs. You do it once, it's cool. You don't do it again.
I answer emails about the 50 cal. I'm like, I mean, like, is it even necessary? I mean, when are you going to do one for the 50 cal?
Now, my favorite one to actually shoot is the 74s, the AK-74s, that 545 by 39 round.
Yeah.
Like, I bought like 2 million rounds of ammunition from AIM Surplus in 2011.
Nice.
I bought everything they had.
You bought their whole pallet.
Yeah, I was like, they were like, you got to, the CPA was like, you got to spend some things for tax write-offs. And I'm like, ammo's always good. So like, but
you're stocked up on 545 right now. So
yeah,
that's kind of a hard thing to get. So everybody, I know where you can get some 545 now.
what's horrible is like when I moved from Texas to Tennessee, I ended up having to sell I only brought like 50,000 rounds of ammo with me. I ended up selling like 2 million rounds of ammo before I left Texas. So I forgot that the gun
you should have just buried it and came back and got it.
I already have enough things buried out there. Sorry.
Mustang Ferry. Glad the court sided with Freedom. Are there any plans to expand either product designs or additional supported firearms?
Absolutely. I'm hoping that we'll have 3 products out by Christmas. They'll all be on the AR platform for sure. We're going to try to have 4, which will bring in the AK hybrid. That's going to be tough. But that's what we're pushing for. It's funny because people email us and they're like, when are you going to get this back up? We're not Amazon. It doesn't just fall off a shelf. We actually build these things. We have to bring parts together, like all the.
Well, you had to destroy everything you had.
Right. Like we had to destroy everything. And thank goodness the server, like my IT guy that from 7 years ago, I called him up and I'm like, hey, do you still have our server? And he's like, yeah, I still have the server. I'm like, do you still have all the prints on there? And he like worked it and got me all the prints. And some of the guys, like we have another individual, one of the engineers is helping us that helped us with Slide Fire, Ed Retort. Yeah. So the party's getting back together. We're getting all the designs up. We're definitely going to go back into the AK platform. I think the 1022's out there. We're going to put a couple kits together because like the Smith & Wesson made a great 22, the 1522 that worked great with the Slide Fire. You just needed a good, reliable trigger, and CMC makes those. So we'll try to put some packages together there to make it easier for the customers to come and get one-stop shop, like get the trigger, the stock, the recoil pad, and the muzzle brake on together. Yeah. So we're going to start getting those things back and like as fast as we can do it. But like also the new models, I'm looking at some stuff for Glocks, just so you know.
Okay. I just saw in an email I got, somebody's got a trigger out now, a binary trigger for a Glock.
Yeah, what was it? Yeah, we've seen a couple of those, but like this is just going to be a whole new platform.
The G Flex, is that it?
Probably.
May have been. I get like
a couple different
emails from the companies.
So yeah, we're going to touch on all of those.
Nice. Let me ask you this. So outside of the firearms industry, is there any applications for your products that you see outside of the firearms industry?
Well, I've got a watering design for my chickens that I want to write.
Okay.
I think it would do really good at Tractor Supply, dude. You laugh.
No,
Okay,
I think it will work. That's the problem.
like-
that's why I laugh, because it'll work. And
So
It's not
when-
patent. Don't talk about it on here.
Yeah.
We'll talk off.
Yeah, okay. I came up with the idea about the same time I came up with the slide fire, and nobody's made it yet. And I'm tired of making them myself, and they would be much easier just to sell them for $10 at Tractor Supply. So I probably will make those farm tools.
There you go. If you got the patent on it already, if not, then do it as soon as we get off.
All right.
Let's see. B. Hurst asked another one. He says, any plans for the AK market? You just answered that. Like new versions with less side wobble. I
Yes.
second a rabbit hole about the legal battle. Great job. So there you go. There's P-Man. We answered his. P-Man goes on to say, also, can we get one of these in a pistol brace that we can put on a ghost gun? Might be the ultimate fuck you to the ATF.
Actually, I submitted one to the ATF, a pistol brace version of the mod back in, I believe it was 2016. And they actually came back and said no, and they didn't say because it made it a machine gun. They said because it was no longer intended to be fired with one hand. Because a pistol, by definition, is designed to be fired with one hand.
Well, Glock fired with one hand.
Right, but to slide fire, you would have to move that forward.
Oh, you have to move it. That's right.
So I was like, okay, but I've got a solution for that. Like I've already designed a way around.
But again, for the disabled people, the brace straps on there, and then if they can do this, and they got something wrong with the hand.
Let me get my proof of concept.
Maybe they just got one hand that's disabled.
I'm working on it. Like that's one of the ones I've got.
I'll argue that with you all day long, buddy.
Hey, you know what? I agree. Like there shouldn't be any limitations. You should be able to make what you want to make.
And has anybody tried like one of these binary triggers with the slide fire? Would that be overkill?
I've talked to a couple of people and they say it works. Like I've personally never done it.
I was going to try it this weekend, but I couldn't get the one to work. Yeah, theirs is you
pull release.
Yeah, pull release.
Yeah,
so,
I've talked to a couple of people via text, email type thing, and they've said that they've got them to work and they're incredibly fast, which of course they would because they're firing
one on pull, one on release.
Did you see how fast mine was shooting?
Oh yeah.
Hey, you want to see a gun go real fast? Get you a 9mm AR like that. The blowback 9mm AR.
I was debating on whether to put it on the 9 that I've got or just slap it on.
You can if you got a 32 round stick mag or something like that, and you slap it in there, you could have the whole rainbow of brass in the air before the first one hits the ground.
I'm gonna switch it out and put it on the 9.
And
I'll do a video on that
because the recoil is so low. Like you can just so gentle. You should see on our YouTube. I put a couple videos up from back in 2009 when I was shooting with the 9mm AR. You can put them in a target like this big at 25 feet. Like it's amazing. You can cut the center of the target out.
Is the link on your website to your YouTube?
That's the wrong YouTube. That's the YouTube. That's the YouTube reboot. If you just go to slide fire on YouTube.
We finally got we had to. Yeah. I didn't keep all my passwords either, so like Google was like.
Yeah, I spent about 12 weeks getting the Google business back.
Tommy's like, "What's
Twitter,
the password?"
Or X now, and then the original slide fire YouTube. We're probably lost on the Instagram. We're gonna be stuck with the slide fire reboot, and then the Facebook page is
maybe Zuck will reach out.
Yeah,
maybe somebody's friends with Zuck that's listening.
Yes, he listened to you. Can you give us our Facebook page back?
See if we can get our Instagram page back.
So Zuck, I know you're listening.
Yeah, somebody. And it's just for the fact that there's a lot of followers on there, and we could get it. It would be
who could help you. You know who could help you is Ton Jones with Firebird.
Okay. No kidding.
Reach out to us. We need the help.
Yes. Somebody.
When we get off here, remind me, and I'll hook you
for less than $100,000. Because I've called people that are like, we just 100,000. We'll get your we'll get your Facebook page back, and I'm like, come on.
He's a good dude. He'll help you out.
It's funny because a lot of people do call up and they're like thinking this is a massive company. I'm like, no, it's like me and Tommy. Like,
yeah, I mean, we're getting it done, but
like we're working on it. Like I had like 50 employees at one time, and we were nationwide, but like right now, just us.
Well, you're rebuilding.
Yeah, it's tough.
Let me ask you this. So I guarantee you lessons learned. So the first time you did it, the second time you did it, now you're kind of the third time ramping back up.
Yep.
I guarantee you there's lessons that you learned. It's like, okay, we're going to do this differently. This is going to be different going forward kind of deal. Did you learn lessons like that?
Absolutely. The most important is be careful who you have sitting next to you.
That's number one.
I mean, honest to God, like it's one of those things where like you're the captain of the ship. You got to keep it off the rocks. But if you don't have somebody next to you that can do the job, like you will be a slave to that machine. So like having good people around you that can trust, that understand what you're trying to do and why you're trying to do it, and being able to help you. Another thing that I learned was don't try to do things you're not good at. Like if you don't remember your passwords, just tell Tommy. But no, that was one of the big ones is like, there was a lot of things that I wasn't good at, and I took the time to, and the universe put the right people in position so that I could find them, and I allowed them to do their job. Like I think too many people get in other people's way instead of just stepping back and going, hey, I need help. Show me what you got. But you just have to find good people to do that. And I think that's important. I think it's unbelievably important that you do that as a business professional, because it would be better to go alone than take somebody with you that's going to take you backwards.
Hit the go back one and go down. You can see, I think the Metallica is on this page. That's Gun Drummer right there.
Yeah, he's got several of them.
This guy's Gun Drummer?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Gun Drummer.
Yeah, he's got one of those 100-round mags there.
Oh yeah, he's talented. It's just fun watching him shoot it because he literally, the flow of it.
Where is
He was up a couple, I think.
Up this way?
The Slayer. Can you bump stop? Can your bump stop play Slayer?
Yeah, there's Slayer.
All right, let's.
Can you hear the music on there?
But he'll sit there.
Hey, and if you guys listen to the podcast, we'll just go to you go to our Instagram. If you listen to it live on your phone,
it's awesome.
Yeah, it sounds a lot better. Not knocking the quality, but I know we're playing this through
yeah, it's going through the interwebs and stuff.
When you can actually hear his music and the bump stock going off, it's pretty cool.
And it's Slide Fire Reboot is the new Instagram, guys.
Instagram, yes.
I mean, we had like 10,000 people on our other page, but like we can't post to it. I go on there on my personal and be like, hey, here's our other one. But the cool thing is we got YouTube back and the other ones
got X back, and
that's good.
Google Business is back now. Yeah. A lot of people have called and emailed. I just got the Google Business back probably 10 days ago. Was able to update the website, link on there, the phone number. I did see some social media, and it's like these guys aren't answering the phone. Yeah, no, the phone was from 6 years ago. It's disconnected. We're sorry. Yeah, we're answering the phone number now. So.
Hey, but the good thing is, like, if you buy one and you have a question, like the credit card receipt thing has my personal phone number on it, so I'll get a phone call.
I think I took it off. I think I fixed that.
Like, I'd get a phone call, and I'm like, I'd be like, hey, and they're like, is this Slide Fire? And I'll be like, yeah, this is Jeremiah. And they're
close enough.
And then we'd talk, and I was like, because I'd be like, hey, it's just me and Tommy. And they're like, what do you mean it's just you and Tommy? I'm like, well, I'm the owner, and Tommy's my buddy helping me. And they're like, oh, well, that's no problem. I'm like, And so everybody's been super awesome. Like
Nice.
when we first started, we had, after the Supreme Court ruling, we had a pretty good influx of orders, and like the credit card processor double charged people on a couple, like weird things happened.
Yeah.
And everybody was super understanding about it. And we just call them and they'd talk, and like we threw in some free t-shirts and stuff like that. But everybody was awesome.
Matter of fact, we're actually paying to keep that one open just by chance, because we upgraded the payment processor since then, but we're actually paying to keep that processor, the first one, open.
Right.
If for some reason we miss somebody, right? We want to be able to go back and take care of it and all that good stuff. Yeah. We're thinking probably holding on to that thing through January. We've been on a new one since September the 5th. Right. Same company, a different key for our website upgraded.
What we did was whenever the Fifth Circuit overruled the ban, I started a new company called the American Bump Stock Company, because I didn't want to disturb Slide Fire being in hibernation for the last 5 years. Because if the Supreme Court didn't rule in my favor, then like there's no reason to disturb it. And I just ran my business under the American Bump Stock Company for the last year. And then when the Supreme Court actually overturned it, like we rebranded under Slide Fire last month. So we're bringing the monster back.
Bringing the monster back. I love it.
Yep.
Jerry Black says, what measures have been taken to reduce the risk of further legal issues or mandates surrounding your product?
Hey, we're executive order proof. The President of the United States issued an executive order, and the Supreme Court of the United States said, "Piss off!" Like what are you going to do? Write another executive order? Like they already told you cannot do anything with bump stocks unless you go through Congress. And what that tell you? Don't vote idiots in. Like if you don't vote idiots in, then we won't have this problem. The Supreme Court's already made it impossible for anybody to do anything about it except Congress.
Have you seen the new, September 21st, the conversion executive order over the conversion, Biden's thing? It was the ghost guns,
echo triggers,
force reset trigger, the performance triggers, and then there was some money in there to upgrade the training nationwide for active shooter thing and all that stuff. But you notice there was no mention of bump stock whatsoever.
True.
Maybe is that by chance, coincidence? I don't know. But
like we've already been through the ringer. We did our 6 years.
Like nobody wants to touch you now because all right, it's been ruled on by
we served our time.
You would literally be slapping the Supreme Court in the face, right? Just to rewrite it again. And it's like, we just spent all this time doing our job, and you write that down on paper.
The only way that they could do it is if they change the definition of what a machine gun is.
And Congress has to, and the Supreme Court just said that Congress has to do that. Right. So even that executive order that they're doing right now, like it's going to get knocked down, but they're going to put everybody in timeout for 6 years until the Supreme Court can hear that. So but it probably won't take that long because we've already made the case law with the bump stocks.
3, well, with the pistol braces also, you've got 3 solid cases now.
And we're about to have more. Like we're going to have a whole army of case law that's going to set precedents for the next 100 years. Like the Supreme Court literally kicked in the teeth of the executive branch over the last 6 months. Like you can't do that, you can't do that, you can't do this, you can't do that. Like and what's funny is the spin they put on it. They're like, you can't tell somebody if they can have an abortion or not. And then all of a sudden they're like, they made abortion illegal. And I'm like, no, they didn't. They said the federal government can't have an opinion about it anymore. It's the state's laws. And it's just funny how they spin all those things. Because my daughter came home and she's like, the Supreme Court made abortion illegal. And I'm like, who told you that? And she's like, my teacher. And I'm like, your teacher's an idiot. What the Supreme Court said was that the federal government doesn't get to have an opinion about your body. It's a state issue. And she was like, what does that mean? And I'm like, I need to unenroll you and like teach you myself.
It means you didn't have to do the vaccine.
Right. And we didn't. Like, No, like, man, I was like, listen, I looked at the AIDS vaccine and I'm like, we've been working on that thing for 50 years and we still haven't got one. Like, and you're telling me you were done in 6 months? Like, I want to see the numbers.
Well, and we're all old enough to remember, right? We were going to die from sitting on the toilet seat.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Well, yeah. It's like, come on. Like,
yeah. I mean, like,
enough is enough.
I mean, like, y'all aren't interested in curing anything, nor have y'all ever been.
Oh, I remember there was like,
you don't get customers.
I wouldn't use a public toilet. I wouldn't shit it.
Right. You remember we were all going to get AIDS by high school.
Yeah.
We were in middle school when it was like a big thing. We had
don't shake their hand.
A few years left. And it's like, man, like, get over it.
The fear mongering is just unbelievable.
Yeah.
I'm just like, I just told them, they're like, you're anti-vax? I'm like, I'm literally in the military. Like, I was literally in the military. I've been jabbed with everything.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not anti-vax. I just want to see the numbers.
We're not military anymore. We'll do what we want to do.
Yeah. Like, and if something that has like a 0.1% chance of kills me, I guess I just have weak genetics. Like, it's cool. Like, I'm living on borrowed time anyway. We've already had that discussion.
Let me ask you this on the before I forget the ABC interview that you did with that fella. What was his name?
Devin.
Devin.
I don't know that fella.
Yeah. He was a nice guy. He was a really good dude.
Okay. I watched the interview, the one that they released.
Yeah.
They manipulate or change or edit anything towards their favor.
They listen. I mean, obviously, yes, they did edit things. I don't think they took anything out of context, really. There were some things that I wish they would have put in some more of the informational side of actually how it worked, but that's to go back and dispel the big lie of. But I think they gave me a good fair shake. They asked me some hard questions. He actually even apologized for asking those hard questions after the end. And I was like, you don't have to apologize. Like, I did the best I could. He's like, well, you answered them well. And I was like, I just told you how I feel, dude. Like, I don't care anymore. Like,
yeah. It seemed like they did give you a fair
I think so.
Interview.
I think it was pretty, I think it was.
He did.
The only thing was time. I mean, that thing, that was an all day event.
It was like
they squeeze it down into what?
9 minutes.
Yeah.
Well, and to be fair, like, it was about a 9-minute piece, and they gave me about 6 minutes of the 9 minutes. So, like, they had to throw up the other side. You know, you had that guy that's an idiot talking about, like, yes, it's the spirit of the law. The law is the law. There ain't no fucking spirit. Like, it's either black and white or it's not. And that's exactly what the Supreme Court said with this ruling is if it's not in black and white, there is no magical spirit.
Right.
So, like, that guy was an idiot, but they, like, had to actually put somebody up there. And I guess
when he asked you about the Las Vegas shooting.
Yeah.
And he was trying to turn the tables on you and said, you know, if it was your daughters or son that was, you know, that had been shot, you know, would you feel differently about your product? Kind of, I'm ad-libbing.
That's pretty close to exactly what he said. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I liked your answer because you're like, you know, it didn't happen to me, so I can't answer that question. You know, I can't answer it honestly, and I don't want to presume to understand how these people are feeling that it did happen to.
That was a good question because nobody's ever asked me that question. And when he asked me, it was like, bam. I was like, wow, that's a good one. And, you know, here's the thing. It's like I could have resorted to my typical, or not typical, but I could have resorted to the typical answer. Blah, 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 blah. But I wanted to give it that thing as the honesty behind it. And that's what it was. I just thought about it for a second, you know, like I couldn't imagine losing one of my children. Like I've been in a position where that has nearly happened once already. Like it's unbelievably tragic. And that's one of the reasons why I'm so upset about, like we talked earlier in the podcast, how they just glazed over Vegas. Because all of those families deserve a congressional investigation. Like there should be somebody appointed by Congress to gather all this information and figure this out. Because, you know, I checked this morning just to make sure that, you know, we had this interview coming up. Like the FBI's still official stance is He was upset about his gambling losses, so he killed everybody to make a statement.
That's their official.
They have no motive. That it's probably because he was depressed because he was losing money. But this guy's a multimillionaire that's traveled the world on, he did like.
And you just come gamble with a dozen weapons, and it's like, I'm just gonna. You guys go to bed. I'm gonna gamble.
What's funny is like the Las Vegas Police Department does not agree with the FBI's report on that. And so, like, there was even they were saying
98% of America doesn't agree with the FBI.
Well, and then here's the thing: is they did an autopsy on him because they were like, he's probably depressed. He got some sort of like benzodine or something. Like he got some antidepressants in June, or wasn't antidepressants. He wasn't taking SSRIs. He was taking like Valium or something else.
Some drugs that are medical.
Well, when they did the autopsy after he committed suicide, he had no drugs in himself. Except for no alcohol. I think it was like benzodine or something.
Or he had Monster.
Yeah. But he had no drugs in his system. He had no alcohol in his system or anything like that. And I'm like, and then he kills himself 2 minutes before the cops show up. I'm like, why did he keep shooting?
None of that adds up.
That's why we need an investigation and like give somebody the reins to go ask the questions.
Well, what about, all right, I'm going to get your opinion on this. Because I've done a couple of shows on it, and I've had some executive protection specialists on the show, and the Trump assassinations. And we're at our third attempt as of today. There was another, they thwarted another would-be attempt on his life. But, that's another one that we deserve a congressional investigation.
Especially the one in Butler, like because as soon as
Butler, that's the one I'm talking about.
Primarily,
yeah. That one's. I mean, because it's the day that happened. Within the first 10 minutes, I was like, it was either a photo shoot or he was set up. Because you don't keep the primary objective on the stage for 60 seconds after open gunfire. Like, did you see how fast they got Reagan out?
You don't even put him on the stage when you know there's a unknown threat.
Oh yeah, all the stuff.
The stage.
Well, that we found that out later. I was calling this 10 minutes after it happened.
Oh, 10 minutes after.
Right, sure.
I'm like, it's either a photo op or like somebody like this was a setup, because there's no way that some kid walking around with a rangefinder at a presidential thing is not going to catch some heat.
Yeah.
And the fact that he was able to move ladders and all those things, I'm like, some bad stuff is happening. And unfortunately, I don't think it's going to stop. I think that.
Well, like I said, the third one's already been.
Yeah. I think, unfortunately, I don't think whoever's behind this is going to stop. Like we are in a very,
very bad.
Yeah.
Did you hear about the most recent one?
No, I didn't. I heard about one a couple days ago. Like he was.
That's when he's talking about
yesterday.
Yeah, the shotgun. And the shotgun and the.
He was like
several loaded.
Yeah. Maybe he was.
Passport.
He wasn't there to protect him. I mean, at this point, it's like, maybe are we sure he wasn't trying to take up the slack for the Secret Service?
He was one of those.
They just turned the story on him. I'm being facetious because I don't know.
He's my devil advocate.
But back to the Butler, right? What if
that happened?
What if a
5 shots cut off?
What if a responsible armed citizen was to take action on that guy? Right. I mean, what would happen? You would draw.
You get shot.
Right. You get shot. Right. I mean, you think, right, because they didn't do anything for a long period of time, and knowing what we know now, right? They should have never allowed an appearance to begin with until any considerations were handled, whether it was real or not real. But
he always takes like the real logical side of situation.
Listen,
did you hear the one? How did he get 5 shots off in 0.75 seconds? Even trained snipers can't get 5 shots off in 0.75 seconds. It takes a little bit more.
Remember, I told you I was I was
grassy knoll,
right? And I had the privilege to with I think it was Bush in Greensboro, owner of the Texas Rangers had a baseball team had a $500 burger plate thing for him, and this was been back in like 2000
when he still had red hair.
Yeah, my hair was still red. Anyway, the Secret Service come down, asked for some help between us and actually Augusta proper, Richmond County Sheriff's Office. They wanted to borrow all the motorcycles and the SWAT teams and augment the counter assault team and all this. But this is what I remember. They wanted our motors, right, the motorcycles, to leapfrog all these intersections in Greensboro, Georgia, because so he was landing in Augusta. This is how we get involved.
Right. And
they say, if you get inside the paint, now you're given these motors, these guys ride these Harley Davidsons, police bikes. You get the curb and the 4 inches of asphalt up onto the paint. If you get into the paint, we may run you over, and we will not stop. Right? I remember all of this very specifically. Right?
You were warned.
The counter assault team support. It was like, we need you to look this way. If you look this way, we may shoot you. Right? It was all part of a strategic plan where they were utilizing support, right? Because they don't specifically know me. I'm just, I work for the sheriff, and we have this ability. And it's like, hey, as long as you guys look this way, you're good. When you look this way, we'll kill you. If you get those motorcycles onto the paint, we'll kill you. Now, fast forward, and there's all of this shit happening, and no one's getting killed, right? I'm like, okay, you literally told us, this is 20 years ago, too, by the way. I mean,
they meant 20 years ago.
You guys can support us, but if you don't support us the way we want you to support us, we might actually kill you. And I'm like, here's this guy on a roof with a gun, and people pointing and shouting and everything, and they're like,
nobody shoots it.
And they're like,
minutes before,
bring him out.
He even gets on the roof.
Yeah, bring him out.
Hey, I mean, it's kind of like shooting at people for 11 minutes and then just stopping 45 minutes before the SWAT team.
I'll be honest, like I want to actually, Hercules used to be their call sign. The Secret Service DMs, counter snipers, what do you call them? But I'm kind of surprised about the actual aftermath of the target. To be honest, I was like, why? You got the round skim down face, and I'm sure some center mass shot somewhere, but why the head was still there is kind of beyond me.
Well, because it was a slate roof.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
That's what it was. Yeah. So this latest, they're not calling it an assassination attempt either, obviously. I mean, they're press, media. It's not going to do that. This guy's named Bianco. I think he's the sheriff. Said Miller, I guess that's the guy, was driving a vehicle with an obviously fake license plate, and that a deputy found multiple passports with multiple names, multiple driver's license with different names, and that his vehicle was unregistered. The sheriff said the license plate was indicative of a group of individuals that claimed to be sovereign citizens.
Right. That's the same one I read.
Yeah. The Southern Poverty Law Center described sovereign citizens as a group of people who believe that federal law does not apply to them and justify their beliefs with conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
Miller in his video statement disputed that he was a sovereign citizen. When a reporter asked about the sheriff's statement calling the incident a third assassination attempt, sheriff replied that at first said he didn't remember saying that, but then doubled down on the assertion. No matter what, it's all going to be speculation about what his intentions were getting there. What we do know is he showed up with multiple passports with different names, an unregistered vehicle with fake license plates, and loaded firearms. If you're asking me right now, I probably did have deputies that prevented the third assassination attempt. So that was the sheriff there.
That was the one that I read too. And I think what we have to be careful of is, like, regardless, this villainous talk that's coming out of the media about individuals that are going to be representatives of our country needs to stop. You can disagree with people. You can have an opposing view. Yeah. But outright calling for, like, they've called for him to be killed. Like, that's not okay. Like, that's not okay, regardless of how you shouldn't, just like I don't believe you should be just randomly bombing countries. Like, there's got to be some reasoning behind this. And I think it's the responsibility of those people that are saying those things to stop, or they're going to end up radicalizing somebody who may not be mentally all there, and it's going to cause something tragic.
It's already been proven.
You're 100% right. And I think if they
mass murders that we get, the school shootings, all these, every one of them's got some sort of mental issue.
Well, and don't forget the guy
by the media.
Well, don't forget the guy in PA killed a firefighter. Like, he killed another man. Yes, he was the president, thank God, but he still killed somebody that went there with his kids and his wife. I mean, the madness has got to stop. Strong men are going to have to stand up and say, enough is enough. We're not going to put up with this stupidity. Stop acting like children. When I say stop being an idiot, you stop, or I'm going to spank you. Like, that's how you handle children, and that's what's going on in this.
Over my knee. Yeah.
Yeah, this is ridiculous. And it's sad.
The media's got to quit sensationalizing everything.
Yeah.
As well. And that's
a
big problem. They wouldn't be talking the shit if the media wasn't broadcasting their shit. They would quit talking shit.
And you know what? People would quit talking shit if we started punching people in the face again. Like, exactly. That's the problem.
Bring back punch them in the face. I love that.
There is no repercussions for your actions anymore. If you call my wife a bitch and I hit you in the face, I'm going to jail. You know what happens in West Texas? The cops go, you shouldn't have called his wife a bitch. Like, we need to get back to that. But we need to get back to that, because you know what's out in West Texas? Very polite people that don't steal your stuff, that help each other. Because you know what? If you
you got that here in Tennessee too, for the most part.
Absolutely.
In rural areas like where you guys are. Here in this town, still, Murfreesboro is still a big town, but there's still a lot of
this whole mountain range reminds me of Texas in the 80s.
Everybody has a gun, right? So it's like, well, I mean, I don't
polite society is an art society
because they have a gun. I'm a respectful person, period. I want to be treated with respect. I want to be.
Sure, I was raised that way.
Right. I was raised that way, but it still
another
stands
problem is
right. The bad people amongst the herd know 4 out of 5 of these guys probably have a gun.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to pretend to be nice too until I get to a place where it suits me. And we're relatively, safe and unbothered because we tow guns.
Like and here's to speak on that. Like in West Texas, where Slide Fire is, out in the middle of nowhere. When all of those reporters showed up and the people showed up out at the gate and we're like camping out there and stuff like that, I called the local sheriff. I was like, hey, Ed, we got a few vans out here, some cars. Like, you might want to put a deputy out here just in case. And he was like, I don't have the manpower. So if they cross the fence, shoot them. We'll go do the paperwork. I'm like, okay, I'm cleared hot. He goes, yep, they cross the fence. Go ahead. We'll come out there. We'll do the paperwork. You don't even have to come down.
No one was shot, by the way.
No one was shot. But I mean,
point taken.
But that's how the law is upheld out there, because they have 5 deputies to cover the whole entire county. Like, you can't expect the police to handle everything. And nor do they. They'll come in and they'll be like, yeah, it's been an hour, but like, yeah, your face is bleeding. What happened? Like, y'all got into a fight. Y'all are
bleeding. It's not their job either. Their job is to
protect and serve.
Document it after the fact.
Right.
Not really protect. That's not really their job either. It's not really to protect either.
Well, I think that's the job of all strong men.
But that, I mean,
like, I feel an obligation.
Look at what police officers are actually supposed to do. It's not protect.
No, you're right. They can't do something until after the law's been broken.
Oh. All right, next question. Let's wrap these questions up, give prizes, and then I know you guys probably ready to eat dinner up there.
Yeah, we got some tomahawks downstairs.
Nice. Nikolai Abplanap, he said, I just wanted to thank you guys for hooking me up after Pioneer US got shut down and stepping up and still delivering a prize. Y'all didn't have to do that, but it is much appreciated.
So. Awesome. Well, thank y'all for your support. And I appreciate him taking the time to thank us. That is nice. Thank you for the kind words.
And trust me, he appreciates it. He's one of our longtime listeners. Tim Man 4X. How long did it take to go from concept to production originally? Did you have to establish contacts within the gun industry, or go at it on your own? We kind of answered that.
Yeah.
How long is the average learning curve to a slide fire for a slide fire to run predictably? Lead heads are pretty much special needs. LOL.
Hey, well,
so the proof of concept to design was about a year. Like just to give, I know we talked in a long format on that, but it took about a year. And that was me like going at it hard. So cutting steel takes at least 6 months. You can't, no pussyfooting around. Just get to work. It take a year. Last question was on there. What was the last one?
The learning curve.
The learning curve. Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
Hey, honey. 1 to 2 magazines, like we were talking about earlier. Like typically most people, but I'd say 90% of the people have it figured out in the first or second magazine. And then you have the special needs that take 3 or 4.
Lead heads. I love it. I like it.
That's awesome.
Chemo Sabi 75. Hi, Lefty. Love the show. I'm curious, are there any plans for a simulated select fire 3-round burst? Would this have fallen to the attempted ban? Love the show. I'll hang up now and listen to the answer off air.
All right. Actually, I do have, so, I told you I had a whole bunch of patents and I had a list over here that I didn't patent yet. Like I've got some trigger designs in there. I've probably got a half a dozen trigger designs in there that have been on hold waiting for the Chevron deference to get struck down.
3-round burst?
And other things, yes.
And other things. Very good. All right, let's award some prizes. So today we've got from Mission First Tactical. I think they're going to do a drinky drink. I call them drinky drinks. There's their big thermoses. They've got different styles available. So for our drinky drink, I really liked Jerry Black's question. I thought that was a good one. What measures have been taken to reduce the risk of further legal issues?
That's an important question. Yeah. And I actually thought about that one this morning. Like I said, I read some of them and I'm like, hey, we've already been through the executive order test. Like the only way they can get to us is the way the Supreme Court said so. Congress. Yeah. So like, I think that's been spoken and said. So
there you go, Jerry. Email me talkinglead@gmail.com. Tell me what you want.
Thank you, Jerry, for the question. I appreciate that.
So he gets that. Next, we're going to be giving away a Seal 1 complete gun care cleaning package. It's got, I already opened it here, but it's got like the pads and the cleaner and the paste, everything you need from Seal 1 to keep your firearms running smooth.
Nice.
Was there a question that you guys really particularly liked or thought deserved a prize here?
I like the one that was talking about the lie, the biggest lie. Really, that was the attorney's question, because like that was a lot of people didn't see that part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate getting to answer that question, because like for me, I'm just sitting here burning up the whole time. Like the idiots don't even know how it works.
Yeah.
So but now people are actually taking the time and asking like, how does it work? And you're right. It's simple. It's very simple how it works. People typically overcomplicate it.
Yeah. All right. So, P-Man, you are the winner for the Seal 1 and done. Complete gun care clean kit. Email me.
Thanks for that question, P-Man.
talkinglead@gmail.com. Tell me what you want, and obviously I'll need your addresses to get this stuff sent to you. So there you go. So thanks to everybody who participated. We appreciate you guys. And just keep listening, because you never know what we're going to be doing on the show.
Yeah.
Hey, before we go, this was awesome.
Yeah, it was awesome.
How about
for all your viewers?
For everybody that downloads the podcast, we will do a Talking Lead 15% off.
You could do a discount code?
Promo code Talking Lead, 15% off.
And we'll text you that promo code so that you can make sure when you put everything together, you have it.
Okay. Won't we do lead head?
Okay.
Lead head.
My standard discount code is lead head.
Lead head. Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do that. So you guys heard it. Lead head, 15% off.
Yep.
There you go. So for our listeners, you're listening right now, use the code LEADHEAD at of slidefire.com. Can they order them from your website?
Absolutely. Yep.
There you go.
Well, that'll be the website that'll give you the code. As soon as we get off here, I will have the code entered. So
okay. This will drop next. This will drop next week. So they'll give you plenty of time.
Or bumpstock.com. They'll take you to the same place. We own them both. This is the same website. We own both domains.
Yeah,
that's awesome, guys. Thank you.
We'll have that thing set up and hit it. We'll leave it on for
till the end of Christmas.
Yeah,
I would say just leave it up. Yeah. Because people take their time listening to podcasts. They're usually 4 or 5 minutes behind.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Matter of fact, one of the lead heads try to just take all of our inventory. Tell a friend. You don't have to be a lead head. Tell somebody else. Get the word out.
Make sure you put on the notes your T-shirt size. Like we're throwing T-shirts and stuff in there.
Nice.
Throw your T-shirt size in there.
Also know that we lag in between these orders. We're ordering hundreds of T-shirts at a time. So if you don't get a T-shirt, we try to throw something in there. Yeah, just put Jeremiah's mouse in there. I don't know. If you don't get a T-shirt, it's because we didn't have one. And if you don't,
put your nail clippings in there.
If you don't tell us the size, and typically we just order large and extra large, we just randomize the sizes. We've got some. If you go to our Slide Fire Reboot Instagram,
my shirt, baby.
We're throwing a West Texas rub. 5-ounce shaker in there with some barbecue rub.
And there's a good story. Nice. That's a good friend of mine that grew up in San Angelo, and that's a family-run business that just over the years they've now in HEB, which is big in the South, and then Sam's Club and Walmart just picked him up. So he's a good friend of mine I've known for about 10 years, and his business is starting to be able to support him full time, and his product is amazing. That's what's on our tomahawks downstairs. So
we're slinging that in there when we get a chance, and the T-shirts and all. So bear with us. Sometimes it's just the bump stock. Yeah. And your QR code for installation and a couple stickers.
But if you catch us out at a gun show, we'll hook you up.
If we have it, we're giving it away.
Is there any shows between now and the end of the year that you guys are going to be at?
Come see us at the Knoxville show, October 26th and 27th, I believe.
What is it called?
The Knoxville Gun Show, RK Gun Show.
Okay.
Clinton, off Clinton Highway, Knoxville, Tennessee. I believe it's the weekend of the 26th, Saturday and Sunday.
October 26th.
We'll have a booth up there. Yep. If you're watching the show and you come to the booth, holler at me.
Tell them you're a lead head.
Tell me your lead head. I'll give you a special
Say
deal.
I love Tommy.
Yeah. Bring some cash.
Bring the cash. We'll hook you up. Definitely. Yeah. And then SHOT Show. You guys going to be set up at SHOT Show? You doing that? You jumping back into that yet, or what?
They were pretty ugly to me in 2018. I prepaid. Those booths cost tens of thousands of dollars. I went to the SHOT Show for 7 years straight, and then in 2018 they were absolutely horrible to me. They did, and then on top of that, they kept my money. I paid tens of thousands of dollars per booth, and they just gave me the finger and went "What are you going to do about it? Everybody hates you." So we probably will go right, and it's just your sponsors hate me because they're all misinformed.
If we are there, we won't have a booth. Not this year.
No, we'll be walking around.
We'll be walking around.
Quite frankly, after my 7 years in the SHOT Show, I haven't been impressed with you don't get to meet customers. You meet other industry people, and while some of them are really cool, some of them aren't really cool. And I like to talk to the customers because they typically have a better idea.
NRA, something like that. You guys might do the next NRA maybe or something like that.
Something.
When is it in Nashville again? I wonder. We'll have to look and see.
I don't know. I'll take a look.
But
I guess we'll probably be reaching. We'll probably within 100 or 2 miles. We'll probably reach out and do some local shows around the East Tennessee area and all that good stuff. But definitely Knoxville, 25th and 26th, and
Our big focus right now is getting our dealer network back up. We had over 2,000 dealers when we were Slide Fire. We were in Bass Pro Shop, Gander
I'm sure that'll pick up.
Ellis Academy. So we're really trying to get our products back into the mom and pop gun shops that can go to those gun shows and actually I can tell you stories and stories and stories of gun show, or not gun show, but like gun dealers, gun store owners that it changed their life.
Yeah.
My product changed their life. They were able to send their daughter through college just on the amount of money that they made off of my product. They buy their business partner out.
Yeah.
They were able to start, like Fostech was able to start their own, the Origin 12 and stuff. Like this product has created opportunity for a lot of people. So
And if you're a gun dealer, leadhead gun dealer, email me direct, Tommy@slidefire.com. I can get you set back up in the dealer network. It's a very seamless process this
the
time.
passwords I love.
We're making it very easy, very seamless. There's a low buy-in. It's not, we'll make it work.
It's advantageous. They'll make it worth your while. So there you go. Tommy@slidefire.
Tommy@slidefire.com. Yes, sir.
.com. Get in touch with him. If you're a dealer, you want to carry their products, he'll hook you up. Let him know you're a lead head. If you're in the Knoxville area, check out that show that's coming up toward the end of the month in Knoxville. Is that where it's at?
Yep.
In Knox Vegas. And then I will be in Clinton, South Carolina coming up for CanCon, Mission First Tactical, and I will be there. I'll be there at their booth. So we'll have some cool swag and things. So any lead heads that are going to be attending that, come by the booth, holler at us. We'll hook you up. And for those who aren't, we'll do an after event show and talk about it and go over all that. So
Awesome.
Guys, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show. Greatly appreciate it. There's a lot more that we could talk about, so I would love to have you guys back on. And as you're getting these other patents and products out, released, keep in touch with me. Absolutely. And we'll keep the lead heads informed so they'll know what to be looking for from you guys.
Will do.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
Sounds great. I'm glad to be back. Thank you for having us on again. I really, really appreciate it. Give me the opportunity to tell part of my story.
I appreciate your generosity and taking care of our lead heads through that situation that we had there. I know they appreciate it. You heard from one of them there how much he appreciated it. So we definitely will have you guys back on. So lead heads, be paying attention. But that does it for this episode. So until the next episode, lead heads, as always, keep your loved ones close. And my guest will say, and your firearms closer.
Absolutely.
Keep your loved ones close.
And your firearms closer.
And your bump stocks even
attached.
Yeah. In your possession.
Right on.
She said she didn't like that thing.